to change the name of the sucker. All right, so let me see if we can get it pulled up here. Should be on. Okay.
If the Biden administration understands the mistakes that were made and the
There we go. We in there now. All right. Shalom, man. Salakia, man. We had I had quite a bit of technical difficulties. You already know how it goes when you really want to do something. So we had to switch computers and do a whole bunch of getting around things. So if y'all could bear with me just 1 second, today we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna have a very interactive algorithm today. So brothers that do want to call in, if you have points and stuff like that, that's gonna be available today. Let me send this out to all the chats real quick. Yes. Y'all, Akiam can hear me clearly? Y'all let me know if y'all can hear me clearly. Man, first off, I want to say call halal Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakak send double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and salutations to you, Akiam, out there pushing the word in sincerity and truth. Ariala, and y'all can see I have the brother Require Kwam from the London camp here. And I know it's been a minute since we've done one of these. This is going to be an algorithm special, because in today's algorithm, we're going to go over the whole gambit of the overall World War III algorithm and go in with the coinciding prophecies and everything that kind of comes along with it. So, you know, this is definitely a note-taking live, you know, not that any others are not, but for younger brothers that are just now kind of tuning in to these type of lessons and stuff like that, definitely want to get out a pen and paper. We're going to be breaking this into multiple segments. As a matter of fact, there's going to be 4 different segments that we're going to go in on today, and we're going to talk about a whole gambit of things. Start off with the beast system and what that is. It's major components of how rulerships work in general. When you read in the scriptures, you get a good sense of how empires and rulerships work. And it's no different even in this wicked society. It just so happens that the way that this rulership is going down is on the side of wickedness. And so, but the way of managing money, managing trade agreements, military might, all of that ain't nothing new under the sun. So that's one of the first things we're going to touch in on. And then we're going to flow all the way up into the back end of the book of Revelation and go through what we see in reality and what we see in our day-to-day life and how it ties into biblical prophecy, piece by piece by piece. So definitely this is going to be a show that runs. And so, you know, get your popcorn or whatever. Did you have any opening statements that you wanted to go in on, Require Corn?
Oh, no. You could just, we can get right into it.
We can get right into it. Okay. So what I want to open up with is, sorry, man, I'm using another computer, so I'm having to learn how to move a little bit. Can you see my is my other screen pulling up?
No.
Okay. first thing that I want to do, if you can get, there's nothing new under the sun, Baba Kusha.
Con.
And then I'm going to share the screen. Right. Shalom to everybody that's tuning in, man. I see you. I see y'all posting comments. I will be checking the comment board frequently. Right. And so looking at this page right here, it's you see where it says algorithm. Okay. And it says, in mathematics and computer science, an algorithm is a finite sequence of well-defined computer implementable instructions, typically to solve a class of specific problems or perform a computation. Algorithms are always ambiguous and are used as specifications for performing calculations, data processing, automated reasoning, and always ambiguous and are used as specifications for, and other tasks. All right. So the reason why we use this word algorithm is because what the Most High has done is he's in his overarching grand mind, he's the author of everything that's happening in the universe. And so all the events that we see happening across the world, they may seem like independent random events, but they're actually very specific to what the Most High wants to happen in the end times. And we know that all things are happening and leading these kingdoms into what's called the War of Armageddon in the Bible. And that's why we see nations building up the military so rapidly right now. And that's why when you look at the economic and political infrastructure of everything, fighting and revolutions and wars about to happen. Even with the systems that you see coming in and around the jab, all of these regulatory moves are built around the market of beasts that's getting ready to be brought out here, and also for the nations to kind of go to war with themselves, with people fighting for their own independent rights and everything like that. All of this is a piece of the Most High's algorithm. That's why we use this word algorithm, because it's all these different computations or equations used to come in for one finite goal. And it's going to lead to World War III, but it's also going to lead to a whole new world being ushered in, what the Bible calls the kingdom of heaven. Okay, the kingdom of heaven on earth is what's going to come out of the ashes of this great war of Armageddon. Okay, where the Israelites are ruling and peace is basically brought on earth. Okay, did you got that? You have this scripture out?
Yeah, can I quickly get a scripture before that?
Absolutely.
I just wanted to get Daniel's the 4th chapter and the 17th verse.
Please, sir.
It says, "This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basis of men." And the background for that scripture was, Nebuchadnezzar, the Most High set him up to basically conquer a large area of the earth, and he became proud. And then so the Lord basically let him know that he was going to eat grass like a beast, and that actually happened to him. And that was to prove that everything happens according to the word of the Heavenly Father. When nations rise and they fall, all the different circumstances that happen, because if you go back in history and you watch these programs, they'll tell you all the different things that happened that led to the rise and the fall. Well, you have to understand that every minute detail is part of the Lord's algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, the Most High is the one that's controlling the minds of men and controlling the weather and everything that happens to bring about his goal and his end.
That's right. That's right.
But I'll get the precept that you asked for. Is Ecclesiastes 1:9. The thing that have been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. Mm-hmm. And there is no new thing under the sun.
Right. So the Most High has been raising up kingdoms, having kingdoms fall for millennia. Thousands of years, these processes have been happening. And right now we see we're seeing a empire at its pinnacle being prepared to be taken down. All right. But we can look into the ancient kingdoms and put pieces together to see there was a progression of the downfall of those same kingdoms that's similar to what's happening to today, with the fights among the people, with the diluting of the currency, with the stretching out of the military. All of these type of things have happened before, and so we want to open up, kind of talking about these things. One of the scriptures that's on the comment board right now that's really good, the brother, the kingdom is within, put 2 Ezra 4:37. By measure have he measured the times, and by number hath he numbered the times, and he doth not move nor stir them until the said measure is fulfilled. So the Most High's got this thing measured out. It's just like if you cooking a dish, if you doing fine dining, everything's measured out perfectly. You got to have the perfect amount of salt, a perfect amount of paprika and pepper, garlic. You got to stir it at the right time. You got to put it at the right type of temperature and heat. Everything's got to be measured out. And so the Most High is cooking the prophecies right now. All right, everything's being measured out in the perfect type of way. All right.
An example of that is when you go back to the Greek Empire, we know, pursuant to the prophecies that Daniel broke down, that the Greeks were gonna take out the Persians.
Mm-hmm.
That was prophecy. Now you go into history, Macedonia was actually a vassal state of Persia, and there's a whole long history of the relationship between Persia and Macedonia. And then so when you read in the scriptures, going way back to the time of Haman, they were trying to take down the Persians from within back then. But if you notice in the spirit, it didn't happen. No, it didn't happen until way further in the future, when the Lord said, okay, now it's time. And that's how you had what's his name, Alexander the freak. He was raised up to fulfill the will of the Most High. So but it was set up from way back, like for it to happen, and it's always the case,
That's right. All right, man. And so what we want to open up with is the book of Revelation, the 13th chapter. Okay, I want to open up with the book of Revelation, the 13th chapter. Let's talk about this beast and what the beast is a little bit, and kind of get into how this is going to play out all the way into the war of Armageddon. Okay, piece by piece by piece. All right, and y'all know how YouTube is. We got it now. We're censored, so we have to be careful of our words on this thing. But we're gonna do the best we can. I believe Yahweh Shem Shai is gonna have favor over us. Okay, so let me share the screen. And if you ever have points, brother, you already know. Just jump on.
I was gonna see if I could find the camp sign with the.
Yeah, if you find it, pull it up, and then I'll share it on the screen. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you go here in the book of Revelation, the 13th chapter, we can start at the top. It says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority." All right. And it says, "And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast." All right. So there's this great beast that rises out of the sea. Basically, this beast, when you continue to read in the book of Revelation, is a grouping of kingdoms. All right. And these kingdoms were the reason why it was named the beast, and you got all this allegorical talk, is because John the Revelator, just like we are today, was being censored. All right. John the Revelator had to speak in code because he was behind enemy lines in the Roman Empire. All right. So these heads were different kingdoms that was positioned during the time of the Roman Empire. And so you had different leaderships that was going on. Now, this spread all the way up until the time of colonialism. All right. And so I don't know if you found that picture or not.
Yeah, I've got it. If you share my screen, it should come up automatically.
Absolutely, I can.
Is that working? What's
No,
going
it's black. The screen is still black.
on? Well,
Okay, there it is.
oh, I have to have it open. Okay.
Okay, right. Right, and so most of the if you Google this, you can find this pretty easily. I'm assuming you can find this pretty easily. This is giving you an idea of this beast, right? It says the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, and if you can just read there, you can see. Make that big right there. Boom. All right, you see where it says the Greeks with the British, Germania, Major, Minor, the French, the Romans, um, and then I don't know if you look towards the side, it even the brothers even put on there those 10 horns, right? All these different financial markets that worked within the Roman Empire that in the time of the colonial period. Okay. Now, as you keep reading, it says that the deadly wound was healed because you had the fall of the Roman Empire. You had the fall of that system, but then it ended up coming back during the time of the Renaissance period. Okay. So that's where you get the rise of, Spain, France, Great Britain, all of that type of stuff. Okay, leading into what we have today with the UN, NATO, all that whole power structure is the beast system. So when we say the beast, we're talking about all of these kingdoms together. Okay, we're talking about all of these kingdoms together. Now, when you look at that picture, there's this lady riding on this beast, right? The whore that rideth upon the beast that you read about in the book of Revelation, the 17th chapter. That's America. That's America. Mystery Babylon the Great. All right. And so from America, you have it leading and guiding these beasts who had power with her. So when we talk about the beast, we're talking about this whole system of things. Okay. And from the time of ancient Rome until today, there's stark and blatant similarities that make these scriptures jump off the page. Okay. Now, I know you had an article that you wanted to touch in on, and we can kind of read into it, because when you go back into the book of Revelation, the 13th chapter, it says they wondered after the beast. Okay. They wondered after the beast because this beast was able to do great things in the world. All right. Great accomplishments. Let me see. It says in verse 4, it says, and they worshiped the dragon which gave power unto the beast. Right. That dragon is that Roman Empire, that image of Rome, right? And they worship the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against the Most High, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. All right. And so we see this continually within the Roman Empire and even up to this day, blaspheming the image of the Heavenly Father, blaspheming the apple of the Most High's eye, the Israelites, the tabernacle, the people, the whole imagery of righteousness is being blasphemed in this kingdom. Okay, everything, idol worship is littered all throughout the beast system. When you go throughout Europe, when you go through really the whole world. Okay, this place has been completely and utterly wicked towards the righteousness of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. So destruction is being determined for this place. Did you have any points out?
I've got the article. I'm not sure if you wanted to quickly break down the prophecy regarding the formation of America through defeating three of the horns.
Sure.
I think that's in Daniel's 7th chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that also goes. Yeah. So what we mean by that, Arkim, is it actually prophesies the rise of America, which is Rome all over again. So when you go into Daniel's 7 and 20, it says, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up. So the other which came up is talking about America. and before whom 3 fell. Because in order for America to become like a so-called independent corporation, they had to defeat 3 nations that had colonized America. So you had the English colonists, the French colonists, and you had the Spanish colonists. And that's why even now to this day, the eastern states have a lot of English names, and then you got some of the southern states, they got the French, like Louisiana, I believe.
Yep.
They got that French heritage, what, Creole. Some people even still speak those languages. And then obviously once you head out towards the west, Los Angeles ain't English, man. You know,
it's all Spanish.
Yeah, it's all Spanish. So America had to in order to be formed, it had to gain its independence from those powers at the time. And then to go into a little bit more detail, when you go into Revelations, it tells you that's how you know the English variant. That's what we call it.
The English variant.
The English variant would be the dominant variant, and that's why America speaks English, and that's why Britain geopolitically has had this what they call a special relationship with America, even though it was the French that helped America so-called gain its independence from Britain. Britain and America still had this special relationship. So, you know, the president will come chill chill with the prime minister and vice versa, and they're all buddy. Let me get that scripture real quick.
Keep speaking, Ak. I gotta go grab something real quick.
Yeah. I want to get so all this geopolitics and these movements and nations, it was all prophesied. Let me just get that up real quick, and hopefully we're going to go into a lot of things that led to America in this position. Revelation 17. So if we get 17. Right, so Revelation 17:9 says, and here is the mind which have wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. So if you go back to the image that we had put up before, you had the dragon with the 7 heads. That represents like 7 major nations that came before America, 7 major powers, right? Rome being one of them. Right, and it says there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is. So the one that was at the time of John the Revelator was Rome. Rome was the leader at the time, and the other is not come yet. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. Now that represents the when the Edomite variant in Britain gained supremacy, and they had something called the British Empire. All right, and the British Empire was very powerful. You know, at one time, it said that the sun never set on the British Empire. Okay, but because of prophecy, they had to go down and make space for America, which would be the Rome all over again. All right, so it says, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th. So that represents America or Babylon the Great, or the whore that rideth on the beast. It says, and is of the 7 and goeth into perdition. All right, because America came out of those nations, specifically Britain. But it says what? It's going to go into perdition, meaning destruction. All right, because that's the end of America ultimately is going to be destruction, man. Great destruction, the greatest. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. And that pretty much goes into how, with America leading the charge as the superpower, these NATO nations basically have been given power in the earth to go around and do whatever they want, because they got America by their side. That's what NATO is. It's a gang. And they got America as the big muscle. And they go wherever they want and do whatever they want to do with things that they couldn't do by themselves. Like the reason that Russia has to respect a lot of these European countries, it's not because individually they could take Russia on, it's because they have that NATO pact and America is joined in with that. So if you mess with one NATO country, you mess with all of them. So it gives them like a combined power. Whereas if they were separate, they couldn't do half the things that they'd be doing in the world.
That's right.
So that's why it says they receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So together, as a unit, they can go around the world and bully all the nations, and then they start economically, they join together, which we're going to go into later, and they bully up the nations and they divide the spoils amongst themselves. So French companies and German companies and British companies and mainly American companies can benefit from the empire.
Yep, and really, all those European companies, you know, because when you look at North, Central, and South America, the countries that really run the infrastructure of things are typically like the brothers saying British, Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, European-based nations that are within that NATO conglomerate are running the lumber industries, the coal industries, the natural gas industries, the oil industries, all the mines, you know, the copper mines, the gold mines, all of these type of things are run by U.S. and European-based people, Edomites in all those areas. Okay.
100%. And then it says, these have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. So they be moving pretty much lock and step with America being that spearhead. But we see that through prophecy, there's starting to be dissension amongst the ranks, you know. But we're gonna get further into that, you know, as we go along. I just wanted to bring those prophecies out just to pinpoint America and its formation of Rome. Did you want to move on to the article?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the things that was stated in Revelation, the 13th chapter, it said when you go to verse verse 12 in Revelation 13 and 12, if you brothers are reading along, it says, and he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Right? And so we talk, you know, when you read in this, we talk about the fall, the fall of that Roman Empire, right? And its rise back during the time of the Renaissance period. When you look into America and NATO and the EU and this whole beast system, it's all an extension of the ancient Roman Empire. It's just a continuation. And so this brother guy has an article that kind of talks about that a little bit, and we can touch in on it a little bit more. So if you want to read that out.
Right. So it says number one, the staggering increase in the cost of elections with dubious campaign funding sources. It says our 2012 election reportedly cost $3 billion. All of it was raised from private sources, often creating the appearance or the reality that our leaders are beholden to special interest groups. During the late Roman Republic, elections became staggeringly expensive and with equally deplorable results. Caesar reportedly borrowed so heavily for one political campaign, he feared he would be ruined if not elected.
Yeah. And so when you read Revelation 13:11 chapter, the 13th chapter and 11 verse, it says, and I beheld another beast coming out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. That's going back into that same ancient Roman energy, you know, where we have these so-called political, you know, we have these political interests that really are controlled and ran by small special interest groups, what they call an oligarchy. Okay. That's really what's running things in the backdrop, man. The small elite fund all the politicians that you see running around. So there's this illusion of choice, but really it's controlled by the dollar on the back end.
I got, sorry.
You got it, bro.
Yeah, I got two quick precepts on that. Sorry, you say something?
No, I said you got it.
Yeah, Job 15:34, it says, "For the congregation of hypocrites shall be desolate." And that pretty much goes into Esau's political system. They're actors. And like that's how it was in Rome. You know, they know how to put forward. It's all about gaining. The whole point of a politician is about gaining popularity, right? But you gain the popularity not by being truthful, but by doing whatever it is it takes to gain that popularity. It's a game. And then so once you get that popularity, you have the power. You can do whatever you want to do for your own interests or whoever's paying you off. These politicians are all hypocrites. They won't necessarily say what they believe. They say what's necessary.
Yeah.
Right. And they show you there's a comedy. What was it? There's a comedy they made called The Candidate. And they pretty much showed you that. Like the guy only got he got the golden retriever dog because they did a little survey and people like the idea of the president having a Labrador. So he got a Labrador. Yeah. That's the very definition of being a hypocrite. You're an actor. They're not real. Their speeches are written. They have people that they pay to write their speeches. You know, it's all fake. That's why the scriptures speak about the congregation of the hypocrites. They're actors. They're playing a role. You know, it says, "For the congregation of the hypocrites shall be desolate, and the fire shall and fire shall consume the tabernacles of bribery." Because that's another thing. They don't judge for the people. They judge based upon who's paying them. You know, they're all bought and paid for at the end of the day. And that's the way of the American system. And that's the way of Rome. But on the surface, they'll make it look like, you know, this is what they believe in and they're for the people, we the people. That's how it was in Rome. Oh, everything's for Rome. It wasn't for Rome. It was for the elite. And that's why, as we're going to get into, you started having, as Rome went along, that disconnect between the Roman elite and the rest of the people, because the everyday Roman citizens became more and more disenfranchised. And then that's why they had to have the bread and circus and all that.
That's right.
It's all connected.
Yeah, same thing today. And the bread and circuses is what they use to basically make huge announcements. It was a propaganda move. Same as we got this the National Football League, the NFL for America's getting ready to come up. But even when you look into soccer and all these world kind of sports, it's very politicized. They push agendas during those games, and people follow right along. And we already know what's going to be the major agenda leading into this next season. All right, the agenda for you to take that Vanessa. That's going to be the major thing that they're going to want to push, and they're going to politicize it big time. Okay, but they did the same thing during the time of ancient Rome. You know, and you see it in some of the movies where, you know, before the gladiatorial events, the leader of that certain region or even Caesar might even pop up every now and then, and they would make some big glorious announcement for the people, right? And so it's the same thing with the bread and circuses today. You want to continue on that article? If you
I was gonna make. I haven't got the actual article. I've lost it. But one of the things they say about ancient Rome was, even though it was set up to be a system that was meant to be balanced, so it represented the rich and the poor. So you had the patricians and you had the plebeians. It said ultimately the laws always favored the rich, and that's America.
Yeah.
The laws always favor the rich. So even when you hear one of these politicians, usually it's a politician that's on the so-called left, they'll come out and talk about taxing the rich. When they talk about taxing the rich, when they actually pass the taxation laws, what you'll find out is that those taxes don't affect the billionaires. It affects the middle class.
Yeah.
You know? So then people, the working class think they've done something, but they haven't done anything. They've just taxed the middle class. But the guys like Elon Musk and these guys and the other elites, they won't ever be affected by taxation laws. Why? Because they paid for these politicians to get into power. You know? But anyway, point 2, politics as the road to personal wealth. It says during the late Roman Republic period, one of the main roads to wealth was holding public office and exploiting such positions to accumulate personal wealth.
Mm.
Yeah, and again, that's what's happening. That if you're a businessman, you know that if you go into politics, you can become more rich. And I think that even correct me if I'm wrong, but insider trading is not illegal in the as a politician, is it?
Well, I figured it was illegal.
I think there's a thing where they can make investments based upon laws that they know are going to be passed, and they're exempt. I'm pretty sure they're exempt from that.
Well, that makes sense that they would create that type of a loophole.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they're exempt, so it doesn't apply to them. So that's one thing. As Lissig notes, congressmen, senators, and their staff leverage their government service to move to private sector positions that pay 3 to 10 times their government compensation. Given this financial arrangement, their focus is therefore not so much on the people who sent them to Washington, their focus instead on those who will make them rich.
Look at that.
I'll be right back. I just gotta grab the door.
Yeah. And so we see all of these things happening over and over and over and over again. Even now, when we during this pandemic, I've noticed that even some of the politicians within Texas have enriched themselves with certain policies that were passed by being able to go ahead and invest in mask companies, glove companies, and take advantage of some of the things that they know is coming down the pipeline. So whenever we see these politicians basically get into some type of, or want to get into a political office, they're using things to manipulate, control, and basically enrich themselves to the top, man. And they'll take advantage of anybody. They'll take advantage of anybody, man. All right. And I see the brother put Rand Paul got called out for insider trading, but no charges. They never get charged, man. These guys run around the world killing people, creating, making mercenary armies to take certain people out so they can put whoever they want in the corporation. All of that stuff is real. All that stuff, all that movie type of stuff that you see, Jason Bourne, that stuff ain't fake. That stuff is real.
Right.
You know?
Right. Slacker.
Mm-hmm.
Go on.
I was just talking about how I was just kind of, going in more on how the corruption basically is from the political side and the economic side. And you see the merger of that. And that's where you get a lot of these decrees. And that's why I was going to pull out Isaiah. I was going to pull Isaiah real quick because it ties in with what they push. Isaiah 10:1 says, "Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees and that write grievousness which they have prescribed, to turn aside the needy from judgment and to take away the right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey and that they may rob the fatherless." And that's what they do, man. Because the political system is tied with them trying to get that economic gain, they push out here unrighteous decrees. And they take advantage of, especially you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, all across the world. You're at the bottom rung of their agenda that they want to forward. Okay,
that's right. And if I can bring it, that's just an example of how we are not to rule. When the Lord set you up as a leader among your people, obviously there's going to be financial advantages to that, but the purpose of you ruling isn't for financial advantage. It's for you to take care of the people. That's why the scripture says Moses was a humble man, and even Moses said, "Look, I ain't took nothing from you." When what's their names came against him, Korah, was it Korah? No, not Korah. Them 3 cats that came against Moses.
Korah,
Korah, Nedab or something, but brothers could look it up. But even Moses, I ain't done nothing to these guys, because Moses wasn't ruling for filthy lucre. And then we could bring that into this ministry. There's many scriptures that speak about not desiring filthy lucre, right? ruling, seeking a position because it's for your own personal monetary gain. What's this? Titus 1:7. For a bishop must be blameless as the steward of God, not self-willed, not soon angry, not given to wine, no striker, not given to filthy lucre. Right?
That's right.
Basically a sellout. Right? And we see that happening among our people to this day, that Roman way. Like, you got certain cats sold out for that 501c3, and well, we see the latest, these dudes are juiced up. And why is that? It's for filthy lucre. Selling their own people down the river because they want to get that money.
Yes, sir.
1 Peter 5:2, feed the flock of God which is among you, taking the oversight thereof, not by constraint, but willingly, not for filthy lucre, but of a ready mind. So in the Roman system, these people that are going into the annals of power and are basically becoming judges among the people and nobles among the people, they're not doing it for the sake of the people. They're doing it for the sake of their bank account.
Yeah.
And that's wicked. And that's why you get all this wickedness and this corruption. Micah 3:11, the heads thereof judge for reward, and the priests thereof teach for hire, and the prophets thereof divine for money. Yet they will lean upon the Lord and say, it is not the Lord among us. None evil can come upon us. So that just relates it back to how we're not supposed to be like that, man. Hypocrites and bribe takers, man. Being actors. And that's why with the situation with America, because we're so focused in on America and being Rome, the same things happened in ancient Rome. The elites, everything they did was for their own benefit, and slowly that just destroyed the average American Roman citizen till there was nothing left, and it had to collapse. And the same thing's happening in America. Yes, America is the most richest country in the world, but if you look at the way the system is, it's enriching a 1%, and everyone else is getting grinded down more and more. Like, the middle class is getting destroyed. The working class are unemployed because they sign deals. All these big companies like Apple, all these companies, they did a deal with Mao Zedong. I forgot what the name of the president was. Was that Reagan? Who is it? Nixon? One of them cats. They did a deal with Mao Zedong to open up China to the world, and that's when they started outsourcing the manufacturing to China. And when you start outsourcing the manufacturing, that's why you got huge areas in America now that are disenfranchised. And that's why those are the same areas that Trump went to and said, you know what, I'm going to bring manufacturing back. Because them politicians, they sold them out. They moved all the factories to Mexico and China. But that's the way of Rome. They didn't care about the average Roman citizen. They only care about the fact that the shareholders in these big companies will make higher profits if the factories are somewhere in China paying someone 2 cents an hour. Pennies to make the Nikes.
Yeah. And I had pulled up James 5, where it talks about your riches are corrupted, your garments are moth-eaten in James 5:2. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. You have heaped treasure together for the last days. These guys have basically gone across the world and consolidated all the wealth. And you read about that in the book of Job, the 20th chapter. How they just heaped on themselves through political policy, through coming in, being corrupt, taking people down or whatever. They've taken all the resources of the earth, man. Okay? Which is all of this stuff is a part of the World War III algorithm. Okay.
Yep, it's all leading to it. It's all played a part. All this corruption they've done. Well, China wouldn't be in the position it's in now if they didn't.
That's right.
But yeah, right. Let's keep it moving.
I'm gonna play this clip real quick. Kind of leads into that, and then we can go. You're gonna go into part 3.
Yeah, the continuous war.
Yeah, we'll go into that. I want to play this clip real quick because it kind of highlights a little bit of the political stuff with the, you know, from and you know, there's also a video. If bros go to my page on Faith-Based Israelite, GMS Faith-Based Israelite, we did even more. We went in on this. I'm trying to get the name of it. The name of the video is Revelation 13, NATO, EU, Rome is back. It's a video that we did some years back, me and Elder Yashwamba, but I did some editing with it. It's got a clip on there from Apostle Ramlab, and it really breaks things down even more. Okay, but what I want to do right now is simply highlight this video. Now, this is a 10-part series. It's a really good series. It's called The Hidden Secrets of Money by Mike Maloney. I know many of you brothers have probably been in on that. And as you can see, even on this tab, it goes into the bread and circus part that we kind of mentioned earlier. But the opening of this really highlights a lot of what we've been talking about. So I'm going to play this clip.
Alarming precipice. But would it surprise you to learn that the events of today are nothing new? Give me the next few minutes, and I'll show you that there are cycles to history that can not only allow you to see the future, but to make preparations for the very predictable outcomes. You're about to discover that huge financial gyrations, inflation, loss of personal freedom, and out-of-control government are all things that we have been warned about for centuries and are the direct consequences of the monetary system itself. In fact, most world history is determined by monetary history. So what lessons can we take from the past to help us navigate the perfect economic storm that awaits us? Debasing a nation's currency supply to pay for public works and war is a pattern that just repeats and repeats throughout history, and it's a pattern that always ends badly. In this double episode, we're going to create a timeline to show the similarities between ancient Rome and the United States today. Just like the USA, Rome started out as a republic after overthrowing a monarchy. So let's begin with their early economy in around 500 BC. In the early days of the Roman Republic, for the first 178 years, there's no evidence of big inflation. They were using gold and silver coinage mostly as their currency. Small denominations were made out of copper and bronze. Then Hannibal of Carthage starts to harass Rome in something called the Second Punic War. And to pay for this war, they did deficit spending by taking the coins that they took in taxes, melting them down, and adding cheap and abundant base metals, such as copper, so that they could mint more coins. This caused a big inflation. And the inflation was one of the factors that brought the Roman Republic down to a dictatorship, the Roman Empire. Most of Rome's gold and silver was stored in vaults under the floor of their treasury, which was also known as the Temple of Saturn. If you visit Rome, go to the Forum in the center of the city, where you can still find the ruins of the temple today. And here's something I found really interesting. The U.S. Treasury in Washington, D.C. has almost exactly the same design. So now let's start filling in our timeline of events to keep track of the major similarities between Rome and the USA. We just learned that the early Roman Republic enjoyed a long period of practically no inflation because they used sound money, pure gold and silver. Interestingly, the United States started on the same path. From the late 1700s to the early 1900s, prices were very stable thanks to laws that mandated the use of gold and silver as money, and our people were not robbed by inflation. But in both instances, it was the ongoing debasement of the money for war spending and public works that led to economic chaos. Tell us the parallels between Rome and what's happening in the United States today.
Well, they're obviously two very different societies, but there are some broad parallels. Rome was a republic. They made sure they had two people each year who were the rulers, the consuls. They always changed because the Romans were worried. They'd had a monarchy before.
And that's that right there is those two little horns that we talked about in Revelation, the 13th chapter. You see how it's the same system, man. It's the same system, the ancient Roman system. This is that dragon. It's the same thing when you're reading about that in Revelation 13, okay?
Were very unpopular. They overthrew it. So they didn't want anyone getting too many powers. What did in Rome, no surprise, excessive taxation and debasing the money.
And I believe right there, the brother vengeance of his temple put 2 Maccabees 6:2, and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem and to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympus, and in the Gerizim, the Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place. That Jupiter, I believe, is the same as Saturn, if I'm remembering correctly. It's the same thing. One is the Roman form and one is the Greek form.
When you look at the coinage, it started out being an exact measure of copper for the sestertii and silver for the denarii, and by the time it was all over, worth absolutely nothing, with perhaps a wash of silver to make it look like the original thing, which is exactly what we're doing now. So these patterns repeat themselves. They always repeat themselves.
The Romans were the first culture to understand that a currency maintains its value because of its rarity. Julius Paulus once said, "This device, being officially promulgated, circulates and maintains its purchasing power not so much from its substance as from its quantity." Even still, the Romans never stopped churning out more currency, just like the USA today and the ancient Greeks before them. But in their race to debase, the Romans came up with some new twists of their own.
The first of these twists was coin clipping. Whenever a Roman would enter a government building, they'd simply clip the edge off of their gold or silver coin. They would save up all of those clippings, melt them down, and mint more coins, expanding the currency supply. And when that wasn't enough, they developed the art of revaluation, where you just take a coin and you stamp a new value on it. You got 100. That simple.
The move away from precious metals to something less than.
Boom. And so you brothers can pull this up and go watch the Hidden Secrets of Money. I just wanted to kind of pull that up to kind of highlight the similarities between ancient Roman system of politics and finance. It's the same as the American or the this whole beast system, system of politics and finance. All the same stuff all over again. Just like the elder Yashawamba put inflation on there, we seeing the same type of inflation. You got quantitative easing. They're sending out all these stimulus checks. All of that stuff is hyperinflating or showing you how this money is not worth anything. They can just print more and more and more and more and more. Same thing was happening during the time of ancient Rome. Okay, the brother Jim S. Contrition is key. Hey, Shalom, Mike, I need to hit you up, bro. He put James 5, and it keeps rolling just like that. Okay, so we're gonna continue on within the next segment. I want the brother Require Kwam to go ahead and start and continue to read from the section that he had.
Right. So it says, continuous war, a nation state of security arises, distracting attention from domestic challenges with foreign wars. Similar to the late Roman Republic, the US for the past 100 years has either been fighting a war, recovering from a war, or preparing for a new war. World War I, 1917 to 1918, World War II, 1941 to 1945, the Cold War, 1947 to 1991, the Korean War, 1950 to 1953, Vietnam, Gulf War, Afghanistan, which you see what's happening in the last couple of days with that, and Iraq, and this list is far from complete.
Mm-hmm.
Red horse, man,
bro, just all over the place, bro. Completely all over the place with war, and it's never stopped. Okay, it is never stopped. when we go into the book of Psalms 140, it says, to the chief musician, a son of David, deliver me, O Lord, from the evil man, preserve me from the violent man, which imagine mischiefs in their heart. Continually are they gathered together for war. They have sharpened their tongues like a serpent. Adder's poison is under their lips. Selah. All right. It says, keep me, O Lord, from the hands of the wicked. Preserve me from the violent man who have purpose to overthrow my goings. All right. And so it's just like the brother is reading here, same as it during the time of the ancient Roman Empire. It's just an expansion and continual process of taking people down, putting up proxy leaders or what's called tyrants, and just continuing that process over and over and over again. Do you have something that you want to bring out?
Yeah, I wanted to Revelation 6:4. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword.
Boom. Boom. Just all over the place. Now, I had this one video. I don't know if you had a video clip to kind of go along with that.
I got one more preset I wanted to bring up before you do that.
Absolutely.
This is the book of Hosea 12:7. It says, he is a merchant. The balances of deceit are in his hand. He loveth to oppress. That's one I wanted to bring up from before going into this money system. But yes, going up.
This clip right here. I believe this is the one.
Country on earth in 2021 wasn't the United States, but rather Spain. And instead of setting up military bases just in their own country, they also set up bases all around the world. Lots of those bases are in former colonies, but also there's a bunch in the United States. Just imagine this. You zoom into Fayetteville, North Carolina, and you see a huge military base. But it's not a U.S. military base. It's a Spanish base on American soil, with lots of homes for the Spanish soldiers and their families, powerful weapon systems, aircraft, all run by the Spanish military. Go inside of one of these bases and it's all Spanish restaurants. Americans can't come in here unless they work for the Spanish government. And then imagine 100 more of these, all throughout the United States on American soil, and hundreds of more throughout the world. Or shift the scenario a little bit. What if it was a country that wasn't our ally? A country like China? What if they had military bases, not in the US, but right up close to our border? Powerful weapon systems right off our shores in islands in the Caribbean. If you're an American, you have to imagine what that would feel like. If you're not an American, it's likely you already kind of know what this feels like. The United States has an extensive network of military bases outside of our borders. Hundreds of bases. I've been fascinated for a very long time about understanding these US foreign bases abroad, but I've never actually taken the time to accurately map them. So let's do it. Let's map every single US military base around the world. It turns out that's a huge task.
This is the story of the men of the United States Army who made this project possible.
Esau is an absolute madman. Okay? He's a madman.
And of man's never ceasing quest for knowledge.
This is a full armored division. To give you an idea of size, each of those small armed squares includes more than 1,000 men.
The United States military is bigger than any of us can really fathom. It's so big that even the U.S. military doesn't know how big the U.S. military is. Back in 2018, 1,200 independent accountants and analysts came in to try to audit the U.S. Department of Defense, basically try to get like a paper trail of how big this thing is, how much money it spends, etc. And the Department of Defense didn't pass the audit. Like they literally did not have the documents or the knowledge to really piece together a full scope of what this organization is, how big it is, how much money it spends. So we don't know. Nobody knows how big the Pentagon is.
And you know what,
all we do know is that
if I could say this, man, this proves that this man is Esau and he's a devil, because this man's supposed to be a Christian. This is the same people that come up to the camp, get in our faces and tell us about love and forgive thy neighbor and we're going to hell. They're doing up all of this love talk, and they got the most grisliest military. They're spending more than all the other nations combined on killing people. It's not defense. Comes a point when it's not defense anymore. Did you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not defense. Like, defense is you build walls and you put cannons, and you know what I mean? That's defense. Defense is not aircraft carriers and military bases in parts of the world where most of your population can't even spell. You know what I mean? Like, hypocrisy, man.
He's a madman. He's a madman. Yeah, because like the brother said, Debo. He's a Debo on the earth, baby. He's just walking around saying, about what bike?
I've got can I share this picture?
Absolutely.
Actually, if I give it to you, it's better if you share it. Hold on, I'm gonna pop the link in the private chat.
Okay.
1 second. This is, and it's funny because most Americans don't understand that America is an empire.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually quite funny.
Yeah. GMS shined the what does it say? Shine the gospel, put Habakkuk 2:5. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Mm-hmm. Okay, same thing, man. Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We go to the private chat. Let me pull this up. Let me see. Gotta get used to using my wife's. Let's see.
And while you're bringing out, I want to just read this scripture here, Revelation 17:15. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the horse sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And this, what you're about to see, kind of represents that. The man is sitting on all people. He's actually divided the world up into command zones. So you'll see there, you got AFCOM, you got Southcom, Northcom, PACCOM. The man has actually divided the world up, and his military has a presence in each one of these regions, and there's an actual general which is over these regions. I believe the guy that's over AFCOM, the last one I saw was a Jake.
That's what you call a tyrant, man. You put up these proxy leaders, man. Everywhere you go. They got it from the system of the Greeks. You know? Pull it up on Wikipedia real quick. There it is. Right. Tyrant. In the modern English usage of the word, is an absolute ruler. He is unrestrained by law, blah, 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 blah. It says, let's see.
Which fits America because they don't follow international law.
There it is. It says the original Greek term meant an absolute sovereign who came to power without constitutional right, yet the word has a neutral connotation during the archaic and early classical periods. Let's see. Skip down. Illegitimate ruler. All right, the word tyranny is used with many meanings, not only by the Greeks, but without tradition of the Greek books. We'll have to go and find it where they started to put these leaders up. What happens is the Greeks started taking people down and started putting up these proxy leaders in these different places, and they call them tyrants. Okay? And so that's how they used to do it, bro. That's how they used to do it. Let's see. Well, man, without having to go too deep, man, I don't want to do all that because it's going to lead to a whole, you know how that can go, bro.
Yeah. But that pretty much shows what it is, what we're talking about, man. You know, Esau, Edom. And another thing since we're talking about these wars, they like to sell the whole idea that World War II they were a victim and the Japanese just attacked them for no reason. And at that time, America had been basically building their empire over in the East along with Britain. And Japan, when you go back and you read the history, Japan were fighting against the Western powers because they believed that the East should be ruled by the people of the East. So to punish Japan, America put an oil embargo on Japan. And because they put an oil embargo on Japan, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. And then America played the victim because they knew it was going to happen. They let it happen so that they could play the victim, so they could destroy Japan and get that seat of power over there. See, this man's the devil. You know, but he will play the victim in all the movies. They'll only start the film at Pearl Harbor and they're all there drinking coladas and minding their own business.
Yeah,
they don't show you all the imperialism that they were doing over there.
They play the music, the violin music, and then the Japanese come and they're bombing the place. They're the music, you know,
out the mouth.
Yeah, Esau get bombed. You know, we you know, try to make it seem so classic. They don't tell you all the schemes and plots in the background that led to the Japanese strike. You know. So, anyway, I'm gonna play a little bit more of this clip if you don't mind.
Yeah, come.
Just to highlight the demonic nature, and it's nothing new under the sun, man. Esau's been doing this. They did it during the time of the Greeks. They did it during the time of the Romans. Okay, and now look at the world. Military bases all over the world, man. And this Edomite's freaked out by it, man. How do you trust these people? Look at him.
Ask to Zayak.
Yeah. You know, it's ridiculous.
That objectively, it is one of the, if not the largest and most powerful organization on the planet and in the history of humanity. I mean, if you have a organization that's more powerful than the Department of Defense in the history of humans, like, let me know. I want to know about it. But as far as I can tell, there's nothing bigger and more powerful than the United States military in 2020.
Now, we did a video. How long ago was this? Like 5 years ago, where we went into that one website that mapped out the size of the United States military compared to all the other militaries.
Ridiculous.
It's absolutely insane.
That's why the scripture says, "Who shall make war with the beast?" Because make no mistake, man, the American military is a bad boy. They got the real weaponry. That's why the scripture says the Lord is going to deliver us. David said he delivered me from an enemy, which is they were too strong for me. And that's why the Lord is going to have to come and handle the business and break the great teeth out of his mouth, because this man's military is iron.
That's right.
It's not a joke.
That's right.
That's why they don't respect you, Jake, because Jake ain't got no military.
I'll beat your ass. I'll blow you up. You know, the United States military definitely, is the Roman Empire was described as iron in the book of Daniel, the 2nd chapter. And then through the Spirit, last Friday, one of the guys that was out there asking questions, he was asking about being mingled, the miry clay, and what that meant. And basically, because this military spread itself out and they got all these puppet leaders in all these different countries and nations, they mingled themselves with the seed of men. But there's still that military might is that iron, okay, that says, hey, if you step up against the what we're pushing, we will blow you up. And that's why you read in Revelation, the 13th chapter, again, they had the power to send fire on the earth, man. Okay.
Yeah, because you're talking about that's just America. But then you add the rest of the NATO nations together. That's an A team right there.
Yeah. 100%.
And I think it was Yugoslavia, right? They first utilized that power, and they did that on purpose because NATO is not supposed to be an offensive. It's not supposed to be an offensive alliance. It's supposed to be defensive. But they've been very offensive, and that's why it's caused a reaction from Russia. Russia's like, hold on, you guys are moving like an empire now.
Yep. We got to counterbalance this, and that's why the nations are going to have to come together to even put up some type of military front against the United States. They got a scheme in the background because none of these nations individually can come up against America. It's not even close. The Air Force by itself could wipe out pretty much the whole world. That's how deep the Air Force is. The United States don't have to put no boots on the ground if they really want to wipe you out. They could literally just shoot missiles from thousands of miles away, completely destroy your infrastructure, and then just send some special forces in later on to clean things up. And that's what they've done, you know. But the nations now, they done beat the player shares and the pruning hooks, and we'll get into that later on within this algorithm. I appreciate all you Akian that are on with us, man. Like we said, this is an algorithm special. We're just flowing with it, man. There's a method to the madness, so to speak. Did you have any other points?
No.
I'm gonna play a little bit more on this, and then we can go to the next one. Okay.
21. And much of the U.S. military is not actually in the U.S., but is actually outside of our borders, all around the world.
This post is somewhere in Germany, overlooking a sector of the Iron Curtain.
One of the first things that Joe Biden and his administration did when they came into power a couple of weeks ago down the road was ask for an assessment of how big is our military presence around the whole world? What is our strategy? And what actually does this presence look like?
The department will conduct a global force posture review of U.S. military footprint, resources, and strategies.
Footprint. I like that. That's like a nice thing. Like, what's our footprint? How big is our footprint around the world? We don't really know. The Pentagon is going to start to try to assess that. So let's help the Pentagon out and try to map every single United States base around the entire world. Let's do it. It wasn't too long ago when I used to think that having military bases in other countries was totally normal. Like, doesn't every country have like military bases in other countries? Yeah. Anyway, this was sort of reinforced for me when I was in college. I did an internship at NATO, with the headquarters of NATO, which was in Brussels. To get this job, I had to get a secret security clearance from the US government in order to enter the military base, which was NATO. This was really cool because there was always like people coming through NATO that I got to meet, like my diplomacy hero, Madeleine Albright, who used to be the Secretary of State, or this guy.
Great honor representing my...
Goodness gracious. I cannot stand commercials.
For the last 37 years.
Good old Joe. Hey, Joe. Had no idea you'd be president someday. Anyway, the big benefit of having this secret security clearance is that I could go into any military base anywhere. And so on Saturdays, I would drive an hour from Brussels to a little village in the Belgian countryside where a military base had been sort of plopped down in the middle of the Belgian countryside, in between like stone walls and quaint streets and sheep and farming plots. Yeah, it's a little blurry in this map because it's, you know, a military base, and sometimes they blur the satellite imagery. Nothing I can do about it, sorry. And as soon as I entered into the base, went through all the security, and I was in the base, I felt like I had left Belgium and was suddenly entering suburban America. Welcome to the United States. There was a Taco Bell and movie theaters with American movies and all sorts of shops and like yoga studios and like a grocery store that had all of the products that I was very used to, all at the same price as I could get them in the United States, even though they had been flown across the Atlantic and brought to this place, which is a very expensive thing to do. It was a dream for me as a poor college kid living in Brussels and feeling a little bit homesick, to be honest. I hadn't really figured out.
Bro, that is crazy. Y'all thinking of it like that's power, man. You know what I'm saying? Just come up in your country, make a military base, make a basically a American model of what they want, and just bloop, just plot it there. What you gonna do about it? Nothing. Just like the brother said, neither keep it at home. You know, Esau, bro. He's like the brother said, that's weird.
Yeah, they do the same thing in Japan, and there's constant protests for them to leave because so many of them Japanese girls are getting raped by the American troops.
Yeah,
and they won't leave. Christians.
Debo.
Culture shock at this point. So yeah, I kind of loved it. And I was, again, sort of like, doesn't everyone have military bases in other countries and they can sort of just go to their military base? And it was just, I was so naive. Alas, I've learned the truth. Luckily, I was able to talk to somebody who literally wrote the book on U.S. military bases abroad.
Most U.S. bases abroad look like not so small U.S. towns.
Over the years, David has been researching and compiling a database of all the U.S. bases around the world. The result is a very detailed audit that hasn't really ever been done to this degree. In fact, a few years ago, the Pentagon's own research arm, the RAND Corp, was doing some research on military bases abroad. And instead of using the Pentagon's list of U.S. military bases abroad, these guys used David's list. Like, they used David. He was like, he's a professor. He's like an anthropologist. He's not like a part of DOD. And yet they're like, this list that he made is actually more authoritative than like the Pentagon's own list.
I mean, I'm sort of honored, but it's not a good sign if the Pentagon research arm is using my list and not the Pentagon's own list.
So I got a hold of David's list and started wrestling with the data and finding a way to display it on a map so that I could get every single base to show somehow. After a few weeks of doing this, I finally have a map. And that map looks like this. Every dot on this map is a U.S. military base or installation of some sort in a different country. Many of these dots are not placed exactly where the base is because many of these bases are clustered in areas. And if I tried to map them all in the exact spot where they really are, they would all just sort of stack on top of each other and you wouldn't really be able to see them. But these dots represent every single base outside of the United States, from huge complexes the size of Rhode Island to small airstrips, little facilities that only house American drones or radar or supplies. This is all of them, and at least all that we know of. And if you look at this map and you see a base that you know of that is not here, or one that is there that doesn't belong there, tell me about it. I want to know, because this is sort of hard information to ascertain. The Pentagon is not very transparent, and neither are host countries.
Boom. So that gives you an idea of, like, man, the scope of how this man has gone into all these different nations and taken over everything, man. And how he needed to keep it at home. And how he's basically got all the nations drinking down the wine of the wrath of fornication. And he uses his military might to force the drink, to force everyone to drink it down. Okay? Kind.
Can I make a quick point, Art?
Absolutely.
Yeah, just going into the American military, it's also the #1 polluter on the planet Earth. Toxic waste and all of the above, which kind of makes sense now.
Yeah.
Revelations 11 and 18, and the nations were angry, and thy wrath has come, and the time of the dead that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants, the prophets, and to the saints, and to them that fear thy name, small and great, and they should have destroyed them which destroy the earth. And part of the way they destroy the earth is they actually pollute the earth, man. They pollute. These military bases produce a lot of waste, and toxic waste and radioactive waste, and just destroying the planet, man.
Man, going in. Con. Wow. It's crazy. Let me post this real quick. All right. And so you want to go to number 4?
Right. So number 4, foreign powers lavish money attention on the republic's leaders. Foreign wars lead to growing influence by foreign powers and interests on the republic's political leaders. True for Rome and true for us. In the past century, foreign embassies, agents, and lobbyists have proliferated in our nation's capital. As one specific example, a foreign businessman donated 100 million to Bill Clinton's various activities. Clinton opened doors for him and sometimes acted in ways contrary to the stated American interests and foreign policy. Yes, that's Rome for you.
And that goes back to what we talked about in the book of Daniel, the second chapter. Get it real quick. Daniel, the second chapter, and the 43rd verse. I believe 40, maybe it's 41. One of the two. Yeah. Sorry, am I sharing my screen? No, I'm sharing your screen. Hold on. Yeah, Daniel, the second chapter, verse 41, and it reads, whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. So you see the same thing that happened in the ancient Roman Empire we see today, to where you have all these different foreign political factions coming together and mingling themselves. And it creates, even though there's this military strength and promotion, but diplomatically and economically, everybody still really has their own interests that they're looking out for. Okay. And so there's a conflict of interest. That's right. Yep. Did you have any other points on that? You want to go to the next one?
We can go to the next one.
Okay.
This was a good one. Profits made overseas shape the republic's internal policies. And that goes into what I mentioned previously about outsourcing the manufacturing and gutting the working class America.
Yeah.
That's why everyone's working in has to work for McDonald's now instead of in a factory where they were actually making a little bit of money before. As the fortunes of Rome's aristocracy increasingly derived from foreign lands. Come on, is that not the case?
Yeah.
These big companies like Apple and all that, you know, Roman policy was shaped to facilitate these fortunes. American billionaires and corporations increasingly influence our inflections. In many cases, they are only nominally American, with interests not aligned with those of the American public. For example, Fox News is part of an international media group, News Corp, with over 30 billion in revenues worldwide. Is Fox News jingoism a product of News Corp non-US interests? So basically, America basically becomes pro anything that benefits the elite and the corporations they own, and not necessarily the American people, so to speak. But that's the way of Rome.
100%.
In fact, I think I can couple the immigration, because one of the things that was complained about in ancient Rome a lot was immigration, slaves, because what would happen is, as Rome was conquering all these different nations, I'm going to try and pull it up and then share it. As Rome was conquering these different nations, they were bringing in all these slaves into Rome. Now, you had average Roman citizens that needed jobs. But when you bring in all these slaves, what happens is you make the average Roman citizen unemployed. And again, that goes into why they had to have the bread and circus, because these guys, they were basically destitute. Because where they used to work on the farms of the elite, now the elite were like, I don't need to pay you. I've got slaves from Gaul. And then you can see the same thing happening with the illegal immigrants. They're just slaves. Right. They're low-paid slaves that they can bring in. And that's why the elites don't care about. They act as if they make it a big deal, but trust me, they will never stop illegal immigrants from coming into America because illegal immigrants provide cheap labor.
Yep.
It's more profitable. They don't care you lost your jobs, or you know. But that's part of Rome. Let me get it real quick. Where is it? Large scale immigration. Let me. How do I share this screen? Hold on.
Let me see.
I got a.
You got another screen?
Yeah. I had a tab because it made it easier to smooth about. Let me find the tab.
Yeah.
Which one was it? Is it this one?
Yeah. I'm gonna read a scripture real quick while you pulling it up. When you go to Job 20 and Job 20:22, it says, "In the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him." And when you look up that word wicked, the word is amal, and it means laborer, sufferer, wretched one, workman. Okay, so you're gonna have these people that have been commissioned to do the grunt work, so to speak, which mostly it's you Israelites. All right, like we always say, you're the one that keep modern society going. You're the one driving the trains, driving the buses. You're the one checking everybody in. You're the one in the back cooking. You're the one in the warehouses moving all the boxes, pretty much. You're the one picking all the oranges and the strawberries and all of that type of stuff. Pretty much, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are the heavy laborers, you know, within the West, modern West, making everything go. Now, a lot of other nations have, and you're the one buying everything and living with the kind of rat race lifestyle that you live. So you go to work, you come home, and you consume. You go to work and consume. You go to work and consume. You need a vacation. Rich people don't need vacations. Broke motherfuckers need vacations. Rich people don't have something that they need to vacate. They don't have to vacate nowhere. They already chilling. You need to take the weekend and go to Cancun and drink your sorrow away and come back to work. Okay, so those broke people go on vacations. Okay, it's just the way it is. All right. So you're the ones that are basically the wicked, keeping this place going. You got what you needed pulled up, Op?
Yeah. I've got the. Give me a second.
Do you want to send it to me or what?
Oh no, I could just
Cool. Vengeance of his temple 144 put Revelation 14:8 and there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Exactly. Everybody's basically coming underneath the umbrella of this beast system, specifically Babylon the Great, which is America. Okay, which is what we're highlighting.
Where the hell is? Oh, right, here we go. Right, so if we read this here, it says, the mass influx of slaves during this time period first was a sign of great wealth and power, but later destabilized an already fragile Roman class system. Farms originally run by small business families throughout Italy were soon gobbled up and replaced by enormous slave-run plantations. Big agro. Yeah, all the small farmers are going out of business because they can't compete with big agro. By enormous slave-run plantations owned by the aristocratic elite, who just bought up all that farmland. Bill Gates. You see the same things happening all over again. Cheap slave labor, or your illegal immigrants, or your migrant workers, because a lot of the American food is picked by migrant workers that come over from Mexico. Cheap slave labor replaced work for the average citizen, and the roles of the unemployed masses grew to epidemic proportions. Yeah? So it's the same thing that's happening now. And that's why you got so many Americans complaining about immigration and immigrants and this, that. That was happening in ancient Rome because they were disenfranchised. You don't complain about immigration when you do. You ain't going to see a rich person complaining about immigration. They don't give a damn. They live in nice areas anyway. They don't care.
Middle class. Yeah. Like they worried about that.
Nah.
Peasants.
Okay. Right. Did you want me to?
Yep, we can keep rocking.
Okay, which one was that again? Oh man, I keep losing the damn thing. Got so many tabs. Hold on. Oh man.
Yeah, I see you got them 80 tabs open over there.
Bro, computer's about to fall apart. All right. Right, where we are. Collapse of the middle class. In the period just before the Roman Republic's fall, the Roman middle class was crushed, destroyed by cheap overseas slave labor. In our own day, we've witnessed rising income inequality, a stagnating middle class, and the loss of American jobs to overseas workers who are paid less and have fewer rights. Boom. Exactly that.
Right. And so we're seeing that you talked about China, how they shipped off the manufacturing to China, and now basically taking away industrial jobs from America and the West in general. Okay. And the destruction of the middle class is gradualistic, and it's going to lead into the mark of the beast system, which we will touch in on next. Go ahead.
I got one. Gerrymandering. Rome's late republic used various methods to reduce the power of common citizens. The GOP has so effectively gerrymandered congressional districts that even though House Republican candidates received only about 48% of the popular vote in the 2012 election, they ended up with the majority, 53% of the seats. Yeah, the system's all rigged to get in who they want to get, you know?
Yeah.
Loss of the spirit of compromise. The Roman Republic, like ours, relied on a system of checks and balances. Compromise is needed for this type of system to function. In the end, the Roman Republic lost the spirit of compromise, with politics increasingly polarized. Right? You see that? The left and the right can't agree on nothing. The supporters are actually fighting in the streets, shooting each other. With politics increasingly polarized between optimates, the rich entrenched elites, and the populares, the common people, sound familiar? Compromise is in noticeably short supply in our own time also. For example, there were more filibusters between 2009 and 2010 than there were in the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s combined.
Mm-hmm.
As Benjamin Franklin observed, we have a republic, but only if we can keep it. Yeah, and that's it on that article.
And they don't want a republic. They don't want, they want to be able to have a feel of a republic, or they give you a feeling of choice. But in all actuality, they want complete dominance and control. Okay, and that's what we're seeing things leading. And so that leads us into, that was the first 90-minute segment. We're going to go transition into the next segment. And the next segment basically is, we have a system currently that's operating on what's called the petrodollar, right? And we have an algorithm that we did back in the day. I believe it's called the petrodollar algorithm. And I would have to look it up to see the exact name of that algorithm. Let me see if I can find it. Petrodollar. Let the weak say that I'm strong. Let me pull that up and I'll put it into the chat. I'll pull this into the chat real quick. Let's see. Okay, copy. And I'll put this into the chat. Boom. All right. So if you, Akiam, can see that, basically, I don't know. I think that should pull up. Anyway, Y'all let me know if y'all can see that. Y'all should see the Twin Fam put that into the chat. But anyway, the petrodollar system and how it's been utilized to control the economies around the world through the different way that money is moved. And we talk about the SWIFT banking system and everything like that. That whole system is being transitioned over into a digital system. That's what they want. They want a digital godhead. They want to be able to track, trace every single piece of money or currency that's moved. With the current system, there's still openings for other nations to do what they want. Well, they want to shut that down. You know, they want to get that underneath control. Okay. And so what we're seeing is a shift from the old digital age, the old petrodollar systems into a digital age, what's called the fourth industrial revolution. Okay. Now, I don't know if you had any articles going in on that or maybe to open up on that. I'm trying to think.
On specifically on the dollar's reserve status.
Just really the overall mindset. Let me see what I had written down. I had Job 20 written down. 2 Thessalonians 2 and 4 written down. And so we can go into those scriptures.
So, was we going to go into the brief history of how the reserve currency came about?
Yeah, we can do that. Do you have an article per se on
that?
Okay.
We don't want to go all the way into it, but maybe I can get a couple parts out of this one.
Okay.
Sometimes, brothers, you got to go into this information to truly understand what it is people are talking about when they say a reserve currency. Okay, let me just try and summarize it real quick.
Okay. Meanwhile, I'm going to pull up a couple.
And this does lead into the fourth part that we're doing as to why war is inevitable, because a big part of America's hegemony over the world is by having this world reserve currency, and the price of oil, not even just oil, everything is priced in dollars. But oil has been it still is to this day very important. So pricing oil in dollars helps with the utilization of the dollar and its liquidity as well. So pretty much a reserve currency is a foreign currency that is held in significant quantities by central banks or other monetary authorities as part of their foreign exchange reserves. All right. So basically, just to explain the system and how it works is every country has their own currency. And if you want to do business with another country, they might not want your currency. So what everyone does is they used to be like gold. So like at one point, the pound was backed by sterling and gold, and people were using the pound as a reserve currency, and the pound was everywhere. Because of the British Empire, everyone had pounds. So it made it easy to interact just using pounds. You didn't have to worry about nothing. But because of World War II, and they needed the money, the British took away the gold standard from the pound. And then so what happened was during World War II and World War I, really, America was a major producer in the world, like a major producer. They were producing a lot, and they were taking payment for their goods in gold. So America ended up with pretty much like a whole heap of gold, and all these other countries had less gold. So there was a decision made. What is the Bretton Woods? What's it called? The Bretton Woods?
Yep, Bretton Woods.
The Bretton Woods, where they made the decision that instead of using gold, we're going to use the dollar because the dollar is backed by gold. All right. So the dollar started being used throughout the world because you could take that dollar when you were ready and redeem it for gold. So the dollar was being used and it's being utilized all over the world. Then what happened was they decided to take the dollar off the gold standard. But see, the way it worked out was the nations couldn't reject the dollar because everybody had it. It was the most liquid asset that there is in the world. To this day, there is no asset in the world that is as liquid as the dollar. Whether you're talking about the yuan, the ruble, the euro, there is no currency in this world that could effectively be used in this current system as a world reserve currency. It would all collapse.
What does in your brief words, what does the word liquid mean?
Liquid is just basically the ability for you to sell an asset without affecting the price as much.
That's right.
That's like a liquid asset. So for instance, you can move hundreds of millions of dollars easy without really affecting the value of the dollar, which you can't do that with a lot of currencies. Right. So that's what it means by having a liquid asset. You can move large amounts of it around without fluctuating the value. So basically America, and they set out the petrodollar. That system has allowed them to abuse the world by basically just printing as much dollars as they want and paying off debt by printing more dollars. That's backed by nothing. And the world puts up with him because there isn't really an alternative. So that's pretty much, how you have the reserve, the US dollar, the reserve currency as it is today. It's because it's the most efficient at doing what it does. But there is a problem with it, and as we're going to discuss, whereas America can now, because they have that, in fact, you know what, bro? I've actually got a video on this. Let me send you a video.
Okay.
And it actually breaks it down.
Let's go, champ.
That's probably the best thing.
So you think you know the Forex market, do you? Okay. Well,
I'm going to send it to you in the...
Okay.
If we play this video, it pretty much breaks it down.
Okay, Khan. Okay, I see. I
forgot I had a couple of videos there, yeah.
Let me pull this up here. Let's do this. Paste.
Dollar.
All right. And then I got another video as well. Let's see. All right, here we go.
Dominates global trade. In 2019, some 88% of international transactions involved US dollars. No other currencies came close. That gives the US extraordinary power over nearly anyone who imports or exports anything anywhere. Commodities like oil.
So everything is having to flow through something called the World Trade Organization. Basically, you have to sign up and you have to be approved. And then you have to connect your bank with their bank and have major monetary deals has to flow through it. Or if you decide to just do your own thing, it's just hard to get shit. Okay, it's hard.
Gold and coffee are all priced in dollars, regardless of where they come from. But this clout has long frustrated America's rivals, making them vulnerable to U.S. trade sanctions. Here's how the global economy runs on the U.S. dollar, and why some countries are developing alternative systems that could chip away at the dollar's dominance.
The dollar came to dominate.
Pause it there. And that's what's going to lead into this war. Because the technology that's coming out right now, the CBDCs, these cryptocurrencies, this new fourth industrial revolution, what's coming along with that revolution is a system that's capable of basically making the US dollar obsolete. Like, people won't have to hold it anymore. They won't need to use the dollar to transact. And that's what's going to cause a big, massive problem. Because once America doesn't have the dollar as a means of control, they've only got one thing left. Military. And that's the military.
That's right.
Which they'll be struggling to fund, by the way.
Yep, because they could just print money and create and get the assets that they needed That's why they could put, $600 billion on the defense budget and just buy whatever they needed to buy. But when the system changes over to a new form of how you move value, then that dollar is not going to be able to get all of that. Okay. Now, just real quick, I wanted to pull the scripture in Ezekiel 28:2. It says, "Son of man, say unto the prince of Tyrus, thus saith the Lord power, because thine heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am the most high. I sit in the seat of the Most High in the midst of the seas. Yet thou art a man and not the Most High, though thou set thine heart as the heart of God. Behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. There is no secret that they can hide from thee. With thy wisdom and with thine understanding thou hast gotten thee riches, and hast gotten gold and silver into thy treasures. By thy great wisdom and by thy traffic hast thou increased thy riches, and thine heart is lifted up because of thy riches. Therefore, thus saith the Lord power, because thou hast set thine heart as the heart of the Most High, behold, therefore I will bring strangers upon thee, the terrible of the nations, and they shall draw their swords against the beauty of thy wisdom, and they shall defile thy brightness." Okay, and so like the brother Requari said, as things shift economically, everybody is going to be moved into their particular corner, and a fight is going to be brewed up. Okay. Yep.
And it's like because with the petrodollar, that was just basically like part of it, because when they set those Arabs up with all that oil and they made it where the majority of oil comes from Arab land, which it doesn't have to. America has ridiculous amounts of oil. So does Alaska. But they made it that way, so that they made an agreement with them Arabs that when you sell your oil to all these other nations, you're going to demand dollars.
Yep.
And that helped to basically forward the dollar as the world reserve currency.
Yep.
So that's where you get the term petrodollar, because they made the Arabs, OPEC, sell their oil in dollars, which that guy Saddam was saying he wanted to start selling it in euros, and you see what happened to him.
Through. Okay. Matter of fact, before we continue on this, I'm gonna skip over to this real quick.
Oil in mainly Middle Eastern countries, a revenue that is denominated in US dollars, not the currency of the countries where the oil comes from. All those nations that export their oil must sell it in dollars. So if the dollar loses value, so does their oil. But countries also peg their real currency to the dollar. That means fixing their currency with the dollar. So if the dollar fluctuates, so does their currency. If the dollar value lowers, so do the goods and services of that country. This ensures those countries don't experience wild swings in inflation or deflation. So what exactly is the relation between petrodollars and real dollars? Welcome to this episode of the Infographic Show, how petrodollars affect the US dollar. We're told that the beginnings of this petrodollar system was in 1944 at the Bretton Woods Conference. This conference was one of the big events of the 20th century because it's when it was agreed that the new global currency would be the US dollar. America would be the only country that could print this currency. This is when we saw the formation of both the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. As always, the website The Balance gives a very detailed...
And that's in New York. Right, letting you know the whore that rideth upon the beast is controlling things. This is Babylon the Great. Best believe.
Account of what this would mean. The Balance explains if a country's currency value became too weak relative to the dollar, the bank would buy up its currency in foreign exchange markets. That would lower the currency's supply and raise its price. If the currency became too high, the bank would print more. That would increase the supply and lower its price. 43 countries signed up in an effort to rebuild.
Bro, look at that map.
The world after a devastating world war and to cooperate better with each other in terms of trade. The Bretton Woods website tells us it was felt by the leaders of the Allied countries, particularly the US and Britain, that a multilateral framework was needed to overcome the destabilizing effects of the previous global economic depression and trade battles. It ended anyway in 1971 when the U.S.
That's why it says with that wisdom they have gotten the riches. The U.S. and the elites, Esau, used cunning to formulate all these unrighteous decrees.
Suffered what is called stagflation, and that means a combination of inflation and recession. This had a negative effect on nations that belong to what is called the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries. Most of the member countries are in the Middle East, with others being in Central America and Africa. Then in 1979, we got something called the U.S.-Saudi Arabian Joint Commission on Economic Cooperation. In that agreement, Saudi Arabia agreed to use American dollars for their oil transactions. These dollars would get back into America through contractors, and so they were what are called recycled petrodollars. This deal with Saudi Arabia was the start of this petrodollar. Was this good for the U.S.? Investopedia tells us the petrodollar system elevated the U.S. dollar to the world's reserve currency, and through this status, the United States enjoys persistent trade deficits and is a global economic hedge money. We all know that in the world, the most in-demand resource is oil. It makes oil-rich countries very wealthy, and it's priced in dollars that makes the USA's currency the most dominant currency in the world. Some say this gives the USA something called exorbitant privilege, which means, according to Investopedia, the USA can
see that eagle?
perpetually finance its current account deficit by issuing dollar-denominated assets at very low rates of interest, as well as becoming global economic hedge money. The USA can just print its own money, which is nice for the USA, as it can pay off its massive debt with that money. Imagine you were broke, but could just borrow and then just go to the money tree in the garden to pay off the debt. There are many critics of this system, with one economist writing, "The amount of debt, leverage, deceit, corruption, and fraud in the economic markets, financial system, and in the energy industry are off the charts."
Woo! The amount of debt, leverage, deceit, corruption, and fraud in the economic markets, financial system, and in the energy industry are off the charts. That's what we read in the book of Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter, where it says that he had laden himself with thick clay. If one of the brothers can post that scripture, Baba Kushai, where it talks about that thick clay. And we always talk about how you look that word thick clay up in the Hebrew. The word is abatya, which means debt, Now, it also talks about drinking down the wine of wrath or fornication. And that's where you get that deceit, corruption, and fraud within the whole system of things. And that's why these nations are going to be wanting to go to war, like we read about in the book of Ezekiel, the 28th chapter, where it talks about the terrible of the nations. Okay. And so, all of this is going down. I see brother have put Ezekiel 28 and 18, GMS Rataza Allah put, "Thou hast defiled thy sanctuaries by the multitude of thine iniquities, by the multitude of thy traffic. Therefore will I bring forth a fire from the midst of thee. It shall devour thee, and I will bring thee to ashes upon the earth in the sight of all them that behold thee." See, GMS Watchman 4. You had a point, Ak?
Yeah, I was just thinking as well, because with the scripture also says what he increaseth that which is not his. So he's using the petrodollar to basically spend like on the back of the other nations. And then so even though these nations are kind of upset at it, the problem is that they have to be very careful about how they decouple from the dollar, because if they do it too fast,
it'll ruin their country.
It'll ruin, because they're holding so many dollars. China, Russia, they're holding dollars. So there's they have to basically be very tactical about how they get rid of the dollar. They have to already have the alternative prepared. Otherwise, they lose out.
That's right.
Which is what they're doing. That's why they're buying up gold to back their new currencies with gold.
What's that scripture where it talks about Babylon and Asia?
Yeah, that's in Second Esdras,
it's 16,
15th
right?
chapter.
Is it 15?
Yeah, I think it's 15 towards the end.
Let me go to that real quick, because It's just like you said. That's why you don't see these nations they don't just buck up. You would think that these nations would just buck up, but they can't because they've been tied into the system so hard. If America goes down, everybody goes down, and that's what we read about in the book of Revelation.
Yeah,
How the merchants of the
the
earth.
dollar is literally like a virus. That's so not actually a better way to put it. It's like a fungus. It's like, like a fungus on a cheese. You see the little green spots. You think that's it's actually permeated throughout the whole thing. That's the dollar. It's permeated throughout the whole entire earth. Everybody's holding it. You know what I mean?
Yep. They didn't lay down with that hoe and they didn't caught it. Therefore the nations are mad. Okay. 2 Ezra 15:46 says, and thou Asia that art partaker of the hope of Babylon and art the glory of her person. Woe be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and hast decked thy daughters in whoredom, that they might please and glory in thy lovers, which have always desired to commit whoredom with thee. All right. Thou hast followed her that is hated in all her works and inventions. Therefore saith the Most High, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. And the glory of thy power shall be dried up as a flower. The heat shall arise that is sent over thee. See, so because they've laid down with Babylon and they've caught that disease, and so they're gonna go down with it. Okay. So I felt like this is a great point that was made here in this video. Did you have another point? I was gonna continue on.
No.
All right.
Another bonus for the USA is that it can just buy its oil with its own products, which might mean massive construction contracts, expensive military planes, or technologically advanced tanks. Saying that, as we write this, Bloomberg is saying the dollar as reserve currency might be coming to an end, and the days of exorbitant privilege are fast running out.
Right.
Why is that?
Because
Bloomberg.
Because over the last 10 years, slowly, it's not a massive, but I think the dollar as a world as reserves has gone down by 10%.
Look at that.
So slowly over the last 10 years or so, China and Russia have been weaning themselves off, buying gold and slowly but surely getting rid of their dollars. That's because they know a new system is coming. And that new system is part of the mark of the beast and the fourth industrial revolution.
That's right. Which we're gonna get in. We're gonna continue to build upon this. This is for the people who are just freshly tuning in. This is a World War III algorithm special. All right. I'm here with the brother Require Kwam. We first talked about, how this was that dragon. This is that beast that rose back up. It's an extension of the ancient Roman Empire, right? And so we're watching the Most High basically put together all the pieces of the puzzle that's going to lead, which we'll end off on when we finish today's special through the Spirit, is Armageddon, World War III, and everything that the prophecies speak surrounding it. Okay, I knew somebody was going to put Isaiah 47. It's about time somebody put Isaiah 47 on the comment board. I was waiting, but we're going to get into Isaiah 47. Pretty much, man, that whole chapter, man, is juicy. When we're going to touch in on that. I'm going to keep playing this. Did you have another point real quick?
No.
The water to all you Akyam that are posting scriptures, making points, anything like that. Continue to do that, Baba Kusha. For the newcomers, write this stuff down, man. Write this stuff down, okay? And for you haters, man, that take all this information and then go act like you doing it yourself, rethink the dollar, all these pages that watch all our videos, man, you're welcome.
Explain. With the current U.S. administration policies of unilateralism, trade wars, and sanctions increasingly affecting both friends and foes, the question arises whether the rest of the world should diversify away from the risks
right.
of dollar-centric.
This is juicy, huh?
That's the juiciness, because we're going to get more, because we have to further explain the sanctions. But notice it said the trade policies and the sanctions. And the sanctions is what's been really what's really pushed the change in the last 6 years, like the sanctions on Iran.
Since about 2015.
Yeah, and then they tried to put sanctions on Russia because of Ukraine, and then
it's called
Trump. Sorry,
the Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
The pipeline deal. Yep. And so we're gonna get into it, but it's very important that these the America, because they've built up this the dollar, the world reserve currency, and the infrastructure that they've built surrounding that, they control the financial infrastructure of the world. And so they can, it's not just the military, that they can use sanctions to destroy a nation. And so that pressure is now causing these nations to bring in these digital systems to get around it, these CBDCs, which if you've been watching the videos, we've been telling you that these central bank digital currencies are going to be a part of the MOTB, this new programmable money, which is controllable money.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
This is beautiful. Let's keep it going.
World should diversify away from the risks of the US dollar and dollar-centric finance. In 2017, Reuters told us that the power of the petrodollar was already waning. Back in the day, when the USA was busy spending big on oil and petrodollars were going into oil-rich nations and being recycled back out, all was good. But these days, according to that report, not as much of the money is coming back out. These countries are shoring up finances and safeguarding stability at home, said Reuters, where all the...
You see? So that leads into what? Joel, the 3rd chapter, where it says, let the weak say that I am strong. You know what? I'll see if I can post it later on. Basically, if I can find it, I'll post it later on, that video of the petrodollar, let the weak say I am strong, so brothers can watch that if they want to. Okay? Because they're keeping now and they're building up their own resources.
The oil money goes, said that report, is hard to say, but a good chunk of it ends up in offshore financial centers, such as the UK, the Cayman Islands, Ireland, Switzerland, Belgium, and Luxembourg. Reuters isn't alone. Another journalist wrote this: the United States' ability to maintain its influence over the rest of the world has been slowly diminishing. The USA's dollar monopoly, we are told, might be coming to an end. One of the reasons is that mass consumers of oil, China as well as Russia, have been setting up deals with oil-rich countries, and nope, they are not doing these deals in the US dollar. The article says as the tide continues to turn against the petrodollar, eventually even our allies will start to question what best serves their own interests. Forbes writes that there will likely be something called the petro yuan, but that doesn't mean that the yuan will become the reserve global currency. Forbes tells us that everyone has it wrong and that the USA doesn't enjoy a huge advantage because oil is sold in dollars. The US economy is the central economy in the global system because it's the most open, innovative, and productive economy in the world. And because of this, the US dollar is the most convenient, liquid, and reliable medium of exchange, said the article. Can that be challenged? Not yet, according to the story. Solely because...
And that's why war is going to happen. That's why war is going to happen. Now, to finish that point on the liquidity, I want to go back over to the video that you had sent over to me. Okay. Did you have a point before I click on this?
No, we can run that, and I think then we can move straight into... I got another video on Swift going into the sanctions and that.
Boom. Okay.
2. The U.S. was the biggest economy in the world. Other countries were trying to rebuild, and the dollar, it was stable and plentiful.
In 1944, a conference of 44 nations agreed to peg their currencies to the U.S. dollar, while the dollar itself was pegged to gold. As global trade grew, so did the use of the dollar to conduct the world's business. Even after the United States abandoned the gold standard in 1971, the dollar remained the world's currency of choice.
The world has gotten used to doing business in dollars because it's just easier than doing business in any other currency. The dollar is incredibly liquid, meaning it's easy to buy and sell things all over the world. The U.S. banking system is very efficient, and those things combine to make it cheaper for businesses to buy and sell in dollars.
Here's how a typical international transaction works in US dollars.
And this is why cryptocurrency is a threat to the system, because it creates the ability for you to transact easily or simply outside of having to exchange your money for dollars and do all that type of stuff. But check this out.
A Canadian lumber company sells boards to a French home builder. The buyer's bank in France and the seller's bank in Canada settle the payment in dollars via correspondent banks in the United States. These correspondent banks have accounts at the United States Federal Reserve. The money is transferred seamlessly between these banks' Fed accounts because their status as correspondent banks means they are seen as safe counterparties. The United States says the use of these correspondent banks means every transaction technically touches U.S. soil, giving it legal jurisdiction and compelling foreign countries to abide by its laws on money laundering and corruption.
That's the Fed wire. That's the Fed wire, right?
Mm-hmm. So now, in order for you, like we talked about, they're talking about this Canadian lumber company doing business with a French home builder who wants to buy the boards, but they have to execute the transactions with the U.S. dollar because it's easy, it's liquid. But in order to do that, they have to get corresponding banks that are approved by the United States to say, okay, this is not some type of third party terrorist group that actually needs this wood to build some huts so they can build their terrorist army or whatever. Okay. So this is how the United States sees all and knows all, like it talks about in Ezekiel, the 28th chapter, because they're seeing all the major transactions that are happening all across the world because it's having to flow through their systems and get approval by the whore that rideth upon the beast. All right, so put some thumbs up into the chat if that makes sense to you, Akyam, what we just explained. Okay, let us know if that's making sense, because this is a key component to understanding how nations, they work together because they have to, even though they don't like each other. And this is the backdrop of showing you how, oh shit, this is how they're gonna end up fighting. Because that whole thing is gonna get jacked up. And so they ain't gonna have to run through the US banks no more. So they're gonna be like, all right, let's go. Debo. Okay. Did you have anything?
No.
All right.
After 9/11, the U.S. used the power of the dollar to advance its foreign policy goals. The idea was to cut out the sources of funding for terror organizations.
See that?
The U.S. used its control of the dollar to increase surveillance of global money flows and curb financing toward bad actors. It did this by imposing sanctions on its rivals. Under the system, if a business or country tries to trade with a sanctioned entity in dollars, the U.S. has the power to cut off its access to U.S. currency. But other countries have been building workarounds. Some EU countries opposed the U.S. sanctions against Iran. These sanctions put in place.
You see what it said? Some EU countries oppose the sanctions against Iran. Why? Because they do business with Iran. And they messing up their money. Right? You got nations like Germany, France, Italy. They do business with Iranian corporations, but they can't execute payments because of the sanctions and blockages that are happening from the U.S. and it's forcing some of these EU companies and corporations and businesses to have to buy more expensive goods from other places, and it's hurting their business.
And the funny thing about it, that's why it says the whore that right sitting on the beast, because the Fed wire works hand in hand with the SWIFT system, and the SWIFT system is purely European.
That's right.
So they actually have to agree to this stuff. Which is the crazy part about it. Like the SWIFT system is completely European, but it's controlled by America.
That's right. That's right. So do you have the other article?
Yeah, I've got just to quickly. It's only like a minute long, and it'll kind of explain the SWIFT system.
Okay. Do you want me to play the rest of this?
I'm not sure if there was any much on that.
Let's see.
Place after the U.S. withdrew from the Iranian nuclear deal in 2018 included banning dollar transactions with Iranian banks. As a result, the EU is developing a euro-backed system that is designed to facilitate trade between Europe and Iran without sending money across borders.
The EU countries still in the Iran deal are trying to figure out a way to work
What you got there? What'd you say out?
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay.
around the U.S. system so they can trade with Iran. Now that bothers the U.S., which is trying to exert maximum pressure on the Iranian economy.
India already has an alternative payment system in place that it's using to do business with Iran. According to a Wall Street Journal investigation, it's been used to facilitate transactions with sanctioned Iranian entities. But the United States is still exerting its influence in the Middle East through the power of the US dollar.
The dollar still dominates global trade. You can see that in the standoff between the U.S. and Iraq. Iraq says they want to throw U.S. troops out of the country. The U.S. said, we'll cut you off from your dollars in the U.S. system. But in the future, it's not clear how strong that threat will remain as other countries chip away at the power of the dollar.
There you go.
Boom. See that? And so now we're seeing all of these things arise, and it's creating more and more and more dissent amongst the nations. Okay.
I've sent the next clip through to you, Art.
Okay.
And this is gonna basically break down the SWIFT system, which is it's not the only system, but it is the dominant system, payment messaging system on the earth. And this is what America uses to put sanctions on the nations, including Russia.
Hi, I'm Russ Ruffino, and this is what $1 million looks like.
Yeah, see what I mean?
2014, my coaching.
As a small business, you rely on your bank to manage deposits, bills, loans, and so much more. And if you're like most small businesses, you also rely on your bank to process wire transfers to pay workers, suppliers, or manufacturers overseas. But in this case, it's a reliance that's hurting both your business relationships and bottom line. That's because banks normally use SWIFT to process these transactions. Created in the early 1970s and showing its age, SWIFT enables wire transfers via a global network of intermediary banks. Using SWIFT is costly, and, despite its name, the process is anything but speedy. First, you're required to manually input the receiver's banking details. Then, you select their currency, which triggers a foreign exchange rate that's typically 4 to 6% above the actual rate. Once the transfer is initiated,
so the U.S. is making money by the pound by taxing wire transfers from this nation and this nation trying to do different deals. So this is a part of them putting usury on other nations. And this is a part of that abatya and that debt that other nations have to go through just to execute transactions, which pisses everybody off. This SWIFT system is expensive, and it keeps these other nations broke. Okay? And so now that's why you see these nations coming up with different cryptocurrency alternatives. Somebody put the BRICS nation, example into the chat, of Brazil, Russia, India, and China developing their own ways to execute payments. Okay, and you mess with somebody's money, you mess with their money, you mess with their ability to eat. You take a man's sandwich, he ready to fight every time. And the United States have been snatching sandwiches for decades now.
your funds get routed through multiple intermediary banks, costing you more time and
right. Can you stop there?
Transfers.
So this is something that most people are not aware of, because when you go in, say like you had a family member in Japan and you wanted to send them some money, you just go and you go into the bank or wherever you're going or on your app and you send the money over there, and they make it easy for you. They tell you like how much it's going to cost you to send it, and they tell you it's going to take 3 to 4 days. And you think, oh, okay, it's all digital. No, even though money's digital, it doesn't really work like that. Money still kind of moves the old way. That's why it takes 4 to 5 days, because it's moving from all these different intermediary bank to intermediary banks, because not all banks have Nostro Vostro accounts with them. So there's something called like Nostro Vostro, where in order for two banks to basically operate, both banks have to have an account with each other, and then they adjust their ledgers, but they have to have that agreement. if you want to send the money into Japan, the bank you're using might not have an agreement with the bank in Japan. They got an agreement with a bank in France. That bank in France has an agreement with a bank in Spain. That bank in Spain has an agreement, and it's got to go through like 10 banks to get to the bank at the other end. And that's why you're getting charged such a fee, and that's why it can take 4 to 5 days, which is a very old system compared to how things are in terms of information. Think about information travels today.
Yeah.
Information travels literally in a second. I could be here in the UK and I'm talking to you now instantly.
Yeah.
There's no 4-day today.
But he's in London. It's magic. It's a wonder.
Right. So you got this old system that the dollar dominates is an old system. It's a legacy system, and they can only dominate an old system because this is how it has to work. So they can control it like that. And then you got a situation where it's actually quicker to give someone money by getting on a plane.
Yeah.
It's absolute madness when you think about it in terms of where the world is in technology, that the quickest way for me to send money from here to Japan is to get on a plane with the money.
Yep.
And it will be there. So you got that situation. You also got a situation with these smaller countries with having to have these nostro vostro accounts. That means you've got money sitting in an account somewhere that you can't use because it has to be there when you want to make a transaction. So a lot of these smaller countries are hurt by that because they got a lot of capital that instead of using it to invest and build up infrastructure, it's tied up in this old legacy system, tied up in dollars, just sitting somewhere in an account doing nothing. That's right. All of this is about to change because technology is now here where it's called the Internet of Value. Brothers here was talking about the Internet of Things, the Internet of Information, obviously. The next thing that they're bringing in, which the MOTB is a part of, is the Internet of Value, where value can travel around the world in a second.
That's right.
From one currency to another, just like that. But this new system means the end for the dollar. And that's why the East is it's actually further into that technology than America is. America's dragging its feet because it knows,
because they need to find some way to create regulatory systems to get into control. With the internet now, you do have blockchain cryptocurrencies where if I wanted to, I could send $50,000 to the brother Require Quam in an instant without having to be taxed through these banking systems or even having it being traced. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And these other nations are picking up on that. They're like, we can digitize this value and send it to each other in seconds and save ridiculous amounts of margin and interest that we would lose.
And then at the same time, the elites are bringing in the system where they can control everything through this system. But there's a pressure to bring it. So when you really break it down, it's like America is being sacrificed to bring in this new system.
Yeah.
And Russia and China, that's why China already have a CBDC. All these other nations, just recently, Japan just set up a corridor with Thailand, I believe, or Philippines, which is all based on cryptocurrency and directly exchanging their currencies together using cryptocurrency. These nations in the East are already online with this system. And what they're saying is, listen, we need to have a new world reserve currency, which is a cryptocurrency that we can use that nobody owns and controls. That's going to be the catch. It's not going to be run by China. It's not going to be run by America. It's going to be decentralized. But then they're going to have their own CBDC so they can control their populations. And that's why you're going to end up having a digital dollar, the CBDC. But what we're showing you is that America knows once that system comes online, they're not going to have the power they used to have. So they're going to have to use their military.
Yep.
And that's why they're stalling. Whereas these other nations are going full steam ahead. Right? I've got another article here because that pretty much explains the bit that I want to explain. Because America can use the SWIFT system to basically bully the nations. We've got that part. I want to show you that JP Morgan and all these other American, they know what's happening. They know exactly. If you can play this clip I've just sent you, this clip's gonna break down what we're talking about with these CBDCs and these different formats.
Okay. Yeah, because I was gonna say, for the sake of the audience, what is a CBDC?
Right, a CBDC is a central bank digital currency. See, because right now we have digital money, but there's a difference between digital money.
Y'all see how the ad switched to digital currencies, because that's what we're talking about. Ain't that crazy,
bro? It's instant. The algorithms. Right now we have everything has been digitized, right? But there's a difference between being digital and what they're bringing in. What they're bringing in is like, it's smart. It's automated. So, for instance, right now you got the physical US dollar, and you can digitize it by putting it on a computer on a ledger, and it's just, ones and zeros and whatever the case may be. A CBDC is completely different. It's a cryptographic currency that you can build in smart contracts, meaning the money is programmable. It's programmable money. So it's different. So right now you can have dollars in your account and it's digital, but there's only so much they can do to control how you use that. With a CBDC, they can build into the money, into the system, what you can and cannot do with that money. They can even put an expiry date on the money. Like, basically full control. No man combines absolute control.
Yep. They can make it to where your money burns itself, literally, if you do some type of action that they don't like.
Yep. Or if you don't have the a particular certification, it blocks your account. Your money can't be spent, and that will happen automatically. They won't need no one to come, and that will happen just straight off the smart contract. It checks the database. The database finds you're not up to date. Boom, that's it. You're cut off.
Right.
No questions asked.
This is why we're starting to see these systems be put in place in and around the Vanessa, in and around that jab, because they're getting you. You can see all of this stuff is already happening over in the East. And I think a lot of people that are in the West, they don't realize that these systems it's already kind of like this in China and in India.
Yep. The fourth industrial revolution is really America is behind. But like I said, there's a reason America is behind. Even though they are going to incorporate it, that's why the mark of the beast is going to be there. It's behind because the powers that be in America know that this new system doesn't favor them. The old system was their system. It favors them. The new system doesn't favor them at all. It puts everything kind of on a level playing field, and that's dangerous. That causes war.
So we're just systematically and incrementally heading towards war, because the war is going to be about who controls it all. And Esau, with his pride, because he has all this military might, he just assumes he's going to obliterate everybody. And why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he assume that? He'd been kicking ass. Okay. So real quick, I want to read 2 Thessalonians. You know what? We'll read it afterwards. We'll come and read all these scriptures. And I hope these ideas and everything that we're saying is making sense for everybody. Okay. I know we're moving through a lot of information, but we're leading you up into the MOB and how these different systems that are going on right now is gradually leading towards the MOB and what's happening in the background. Because you have to understand this stuff, okay? If you really want the prophecy to scream at you and you understand this stuff, it's like, oh, okay.
JP Morgan believes the central bank digital currencies, or CBDC, could pose a threat to the global hegemony of the US dollar. According to a report covered by Bloomberg, the bank's chief U.S. economist asserted that
Jeez, she is ugly. Woo. Don't she look like a gremlin?
Like the penguin from Batman movie.
Oh, yeah, the penguin. That's it. Sheesh. Who laid on top of her? Ugh.
Here is no country with more to lose from the disruptive potential of digital currency than the
Boom.
United States.
Pause that.
This
and this is why you're seeing all this stuff happening in the Senate with all this crypto regulations and the lawsuit that they have going on at the moment, the SEC. They're the only country in the world. No other country in the world has declared any cryptocurrency to be a security. No other country in the world. It's just in America. Why? Because they're stalling. They're trying to slow down the change so that they can find a way to get on top, but they're not going to. They're going to have to go through with it because the rest of the world is not stopping. They're like, no, we're going to bring this system in, whether you like it or not. We're tired of everything that you're doing. We're going to have a system where we have the technology now. We can create our own systems with liquidity where we can exchange with each other, and there's nothing you could do about it. We can back our CBDCs by gold, which is why Russia and China have been buying up gold. It's already begun. Yeah, do you see what it said? Who is the new system? The biggest, the new system that's coming into place threatens American hegemony. That will lead to war, because it's going to lead to the dollar being hyperinflated, and America is going to be hurt, and it's going to be a wounded animal. And a wounded animal is not only becomes juicy to its enemies, it's going to have to lash out. So whichever way you slice it, it's war.
Yes, sir.
Go on up.
revolves primarily around U.S. dollar hegemony. Issuing the global reserve currency and the medium of exchange for international trade in commodities, goods, and services conveys immense advantages, the report added. While J.P. Morgan doubts the dollar will be displaced as the global reserve currency soon, the report warns that fragile peripheral aspects of the currency's dominance may be eroded, including trade finance and the SWIFT messaging system. During March, 8 major banks including HSBC and Citi announced that a collaboratively developed blockchain trade finance will see a commercial launch in Singapore during the second half of 2020.
Singapore.
Blockchain-based trade finance initiatives have also been launched in China, Oman, and Europe. The report advocates that the U.S. launch a digital dollar project in order to migrate its monetary dominance into the rapidly growing digital sphere. J.P. Morgan warns that other countries could use digital currencies to circumvent the SWIFT system and the reach of economic sanctions.
See that? In the reach of economic sanctions. They want to circumvent these things so they can go ahead and transact and do business. Right? And this is why the merchants of the earth, we read in Ezekiel the 28th chapter, man, that they realize they've been duped, they've been had, they've been hoodwinked. All right?
Undermining the ability for the United States to exercise power on a global stage through control over the global reserve currency. Offering a cross-border payment solution built on top of a digital dollar would, particularly if designed to be minimally disruptive to the structure of the domestic financial system, be a very modest investment to protect.
Right, so that's not going to happen. The Russia and China and all these nations are not. They're not going to. If they want a decentralized currency, they don't want the US to be anything to do with the money anymore. So that's not going to happen. America, for once, is going to have to get on with board with what everyone else is doing. And the Europeans, they're on board with it. They're like, well, why? Why should the US control everything? Because if they didn't control everything, we could still be doing business with Iran because we want to. Do you see what's happening here?
Mm-hmm.
Go, Ark, you had a scripture you wanted to bring out?
Obadiah 1.
Mm-hmm. And then I got an article after.
Right.
As well.
Obadiah 1 and 2, it says, behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised. Well, you know what? Let me start at 1. The vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord of power concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised. The pride of thine heart have deceived thee. thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, hence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. Right? It says, if thieves came to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough? If grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some grapes? How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? So we're seeing all his different systems of regulatory, of regulations, rules, his banking system, even his military might. You know, everything is being searched out, and there's a counterbalance that's happening to it globally with the heathen nations. All right, they're rising up. They're starting to figure out ways to get around Esau and his power structure. Verse 7 says, all the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him.
Exactly, because all these nations, including Europe, are moving forward with this technology.
That's right.
All of them. They're all ahead of America. And America's like, whoa, what's going on here? Because they're tired of it. You know? Tired.
Tired of this shit. Tired. Okay. Was that it on this one?
Yeah, Khan. I'll share my screen.
Okay.
I got a few headlines and I'm gonna read an article just to show, brothers, that this thing has been going on. Everything you see has been developing over the last couple of years, and that's why now you'll see 2021 cryptocurrency and blockchain and CBDC is everywhere, because now is the time for the Great Reset. So now you're seeing that you have the super elites, they have their plan going on, and then you got America, and and so you're seeing conflict now because the elites don't really care about America. They have a plan. Where is this from? Okay, here we go. So I got this. Iran to launch state-run cryptocurrency to bypass US sanctions. See? There you go. It's already happening. And that's from January the 28th, 2019. This one's here, this from this year. How blockchain is shaking SWIFT and the global payment system. Which SWIFT just came out with SWIFT Go, but it's no comparison to stuff like RippleNet and on-demand liquidity. Stellar is finished. SWIFT is finished. Russia could use crypto to dodge US sanctions. Digital currencies could outshine SWIFT systems, says Central Bank of Russia's deputy governor. The writing's on the wall. Digital currencies may make SWIFT redundant, says Russian Central Bank, which it will, which will make the dollar redundant. Now, this is an article here. Decline in US hegemony will result in hegemonic war or not. It says one of the contemporary issues in international relations is that the current hegemon, the United States, Babylon the Great, has undergone a relative decline. It is argued that the American hegemony that emerged aftermath the Second World War is undergoing a decline. Now, after the Second World War, America had a great military, but what have we been showing you that America developed to propel that hegemony? The petrodollar, the world reserve currency status, dominance over the world's financial systems in New York. Yeah, that's in decline. Yeah, emerged after the Second World War is undergoing a decline, and with the rise of the potential challenger in China looming, which they like to focus on China, but it's not just about China. One major issue concerning IR scholars is whether or not the relative decline of the US hegemony will result in a hegemonic war. Hegemonic wars occur when a rising challenger, revisionist power, isn't content with the current international order and wants to change it so as to become a preponderant force and dictate terms of a new world order.
It is.
This article assumes that although the US is in a relative decline, it is still a dominant power, and the rising power is content with the current status quo, so no war occurs between the dominant and the rising power. In order to support the argument that hegemonic war does not occur, this article provides explanation using several theoretical perspectives. So then they go on to start capping. But there is going to be a hegemonic war. Because the only thing America is going to have left is their military, and they're going to be severely weakened when these new systems come online in the Great Reset. Okay, which is going to include the mark of the beast.
Absolutely. That's where we're headed. All right.
That's why the elders always tell you what the mark of the beast is going to come what before the war. Now it's starting to make sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to come before the war. And as a result of these changes, America is not going to be happy with its position that it's going to get. It's going to be severely wounded. We would have healed Babylon, but Babylon will not be healed. Babylon is going to be wounded by this new system that's being brought in.
Yep. So you're seeing the deliciousness that you read about in Revelation 18th chapter is a word called decadence or moral decay that's happening because of all the lavish riches and basically the dominance of America is starting to wane, or it will be starting to wane. Just like the brother saying, we would have healed Babylon, but there's not going to be healing. So we're going to transition into the next segment, okay, which kind of goes into this fourth industrial revolution a little bit more, because we've kind of combined the second and third part. We've been talking about the gradualism of the systems and the different propaganda that wine comes along with the worshiping of the image of the beast that we read about in Revelation 13, which we'll get back to. All right. But it's leading us into the MOB systems, which will culminate into a major, major, major war. Okay. Because really the battle is over who's going to control the data, the souls of men. All right. They want to control basically your computer code, your DNA, the GOG gene. They want to take over that and rule it. Okay. I want to play a clip real quick. Then get into what am I doing? Okay, play this real quick.
And the first question is, Dr. Shub, you develop a terminology called the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which became a global norm for various industrial changes. And you even chose this term as the main theme for 2016 World Economic Forum. So now, under current pandemic situation, what impact did COVID-19 have on the fourth industrial revolution, and how should companies should respond to it?
That's an excellent question. As a reminder, my notion and my book of the fourth industrial revolution is that the innovations we are seeing today in terms of artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, cloud computing, advanced robotics, and many others together.
Bro, don't he sound like a evil, like one of the people from a cartoon?
Like he should be from Star Wars or something.
Right. Cloud computer. Let's do wow. Right? He sounds like one of those people.
Constitute a new phase in human development. Innovations.
When you listen to Esau, listen to what he says. First of all, what is that called? Pandenomics. So it's economics, but it's all over, all economics, pandenomics. What does that sound like? What do you think the mark of the beast is? You know? Pandonomics. Now listen to him.
Seeing today in terms of artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, cloud computing, advanced robotics, and many others together constitute a new phase in human development, on par or even exceeding previous industrial revolutions in scale and impact. COVID-19, if anything, has accelerated this ongoing industrial revolution. If COVID had happened even 10 years ago, we could not have imagined moving entire companies, schools, and government offices so fast online. Today, that is a reality. The fourth industrial revolution has become a reality.
So he just said if COVID happened 10 years ago, we couldn't imagine moving corporations, schools, all of these things online. But today, it has happened. So basically, he's letting you know that COVID was an instrument to forward this fourth industrial revolution, which is going to be a revolution which he named of robotics, digitization of everything. Okay, and they want to digitize you. This is not a conspiracy theory. These are the leaders of the free world telling you what they want to do. Okay.
Yeah, it's like it's merged. He says it's merging everything together into one. See, it's a one giant internet, the internet of bodies, the internet of things, the internet of value. You know, and RFID is a key way that you bring real world objects and you tokenize them and digitize them and bring them into the digital space. That's how you got like the supply chain management system uses RFID. Do you know what I mean? So it's the same thing with the people. They're going to give people chips. You know?
100%. Revelation chapter 13, verse 13. And he doth great wonders so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men. All right. We talk about the military might. We talked about that earlier. Verse 14. And he deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as will not worship the image of the beast should be killed, right? And so now we're seeing his technological prowess, his wisdom go online, and basically his vision, his way, his wine, his philosophy, his worship, that whole image of the beast is going to be put forth in a way where you must consume it. Verse 16 says, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, that no man might buy or sell save that he had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. All right.
And, yes. And I just wanted to say, the reason you want to digitize everything and use blockchain and smart contracts is then that you can take control out of the hands of people.
That's right.
Because people are unreliable. People do things under the counter. People, you can get people leave gaps. Yeah, if you've got a system where everything's automated, you can control that system. Mm-hmm. Listen, you can't turn this car on unless you have the right ID and all. It won't be a guy. That's the stuff, and you could do about it. It's just you don't have the right whatever you got. You can't use the car. You can't come into this particular zone because you're not allowed to be there. As soon as the computers pick you up on the screen, guns will train upon you. You don't necessarily have to be people with guns. Could be an automatic drone. The drone won't care about you. It'll blow you away automatically. Yeah, this is the system that they want to bring in. It's like everything. That's why the health system, the food system. So when they bring all these crises, the answer to the crisis is just bringing more automation and bringing more digitization into the system. That's why when they have this food crisis, that's going to cause what? More need for supply chain management, blockchain, and then control the system of rationing. So you can't get food unless you have this thing.
Yep, unless you have this digital thing, you have to have this thing to verify that you're going to get access to the food, and we will send you the funds that you need via this mark, so you can have your food ration, because the supply chain is so constricted because of this pandemic, right?
And then when you check it out, like for instance, when you do your shopping now, as you're putting the shopping, like I don't know if they got this in America, right? But like you might go to a store and you got these self-service, and the way it knows that you're buying what you're meant to be buying is it's all weighed. So as you're scanning the product, you have to put it in your basket, and it weighs the basket to make sure that you've got the right thing. And if you put the wrong thing in there, it knows, because it's not the right weight. This is what we're talking about. They can do that. So it's like you might go to the person in the store, and he has everything in his store is going to be accounted for. Supply chain management.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he can't give you it under the counter, because he's going to have to explain where that went. And the system will find it automatically. Where did this bottle of milk go? On our records, it shows us that you had 10 bottles of milk. We've accounted for you selling 9. You should still have 1 in the store, but it's not there anymore. Where did it go?
Yep.
Take him and put him in the gulag.
Yeah. He's a resistor.
And they'll know, because it's all RFID. Just like they show you the one where you walk out the store and it automatically pays for it. Why? Because the products are communicating the Internet of Things.
That's right. And the
product is communicating, you're communicating.
That's right.
You know?
Right. So you think Jeff Bezos just took a trip up into orbit to play around because it's cute? No, man. They were putting the systems in place. He's making sure his money was right. He's making sure the systems are in place for what they're about to do. The next leg of things is going to be contactless shopping experiences, contactless everything.
Yep.
And so Jeff Bezos wasn't flying up in a spaceship just because he wants to go out of space. No, they got stuff going on up there.
They want to track everything. Either the way the supply chain works now, like I remember when the thing first came in, they were saying basically, certain sandwiches, we're going to have to stop. You know, sometimes you might get some granny somewhere that makes sandwiches and sells the sandwiches.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so what they're saying is that sandwich that she's selling, maybe we shouldn't be selling that kind of sandwich anymore, because we don't know where she got those supplies. Those goods could be compromised.
Contaminated.
We can only sell products that can, every item, every ingredient is traceable.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So that's all part of bringing in that system of control.
It's for your safety. It's for your protection. It's so you can live the life that you always wanted to live. This is why we need to have this.
Yep.
This is why everyone needs to get the Vanessa. So we can get back to living our lives.
Yep.
I think all roads lead to the trip. Chip, the brother put the Greek word for that word causeth in the scripture of Revelation 13:16, and he causeth all. The word causeth, right? The word is Strong's G4160, poeo, I think that's how you say it, to make ready, to prepare. And that's what we're seeing, this gradualism. And that's what my man, the evil dictator, is talking about right now. All right.
Yeah, I got a scripture for him.
Yes,
Psalms 36:4. He deviseth mischief upon his bed. He setteth himself in a way that is not good. He abhorreth not evil. Because this is evil.
Yeah.
This is absolute evil, man. Like trying to control everything. And that's what the average person can't grasp, that a person would want to control like everything about you, like how many steps you take in a day, how long you can sleep for, how much water you can use for a bath. You know what I'm saying? How long you can spend in the shower. This is what they want. This is what this devil wants to do, man.
1,000%. Oh man, 666%. This dude is one. He's on it. He is all over it.
Hey, I got something that you like. I'm gonna find it in a minute, man. You're gonna love this one.
Okay, I'm gonna play this while you look for it.
But for a broad range of people and workers. We are also seeing macroeconomic consequences, changes. Big tech companies such as Apple, Samsung, Alphabet, Amazon, or Facebook already are among the largest global companies. But the last months have further cemented their leading positions in the market, while others have started to lag further behind. That will prove to be not only the case now, but will be a permanent consequence of COVID-19. But these past few months have also shown that the fourth industrial revolution will not be beneficial to all unless we make conscious choices and investments to ensure that this is the case. Disadvantaged school students, unskilled workers, and non-digitized companies and governments will feel the crisis much more than others.
Non-digitized countries and corporations are gonna struggle in this fourth industrial revolution.
Moreover, both corporate and income inequality have worsened.
Serious about learning to code. Following our
rebuild the post-COVID world, when we do the Great Reset, one of the most important places to start will be to ensure that the fruits of the fourth industrial revolutions are really shared by all.
You hear what he just said, bro? The foods that are really shared by all. Wow.
Starts with equitable investments, particularly in education and reskilling. And it also implies we come up with a new framework to regulate data ownership, intellectual property, and competition in the fourth industrial revolution.
Listen to what
a
new framework. Listen to what he's about to say.
To regulate data ownership.
To regulate data ownership. Let me see if they got it in Chinese. It's all good. A new framework to regulate data ownership. This is the fourth industrial revolution. The control of data is shifting you from regulating oil and gas and how energy is being transferred across the world. Now what they want to regulate is how data and information is being transferred across the world. What is the chief piece of data? The most complex piece of data in the world? Your DNA. Your DNA. You will need to be uploaded. And that data needs to be controlled. Okay?
Intellectual property and competition in the fourth industrial revolution. This requires public-private cooperation. So,
man, this requires public-private cooperation.
Fascism.
So now you have Apple, you have Amazon, and you have these corporations that are going to be merged with the government in order to rule your world. You have
the savior billionaires.
To save, yes, right. That's what's happening, man. That's what when he made that comment, that's what he meant. Okay. That's what, yep. He said that at one of the last economic forum. Klaus Schwab said, "You will own nothing and be happy." You know.
Oh, to the participants of this World Knowledge Forum, my message is this: it is very important to embrace the fourth industrial revolution and its technology, as it will determine our future prosperity.
And
nothing else.
And the thing is, you have to remember that that's why the currency thing is so powerful, because through this thing, they've basically set the stage to hyperinflate all these currencies. So once these currencies all hyperinflate and you have nothing anyway, you'll be forced to accept the new currencies that they're going to provide. And those currencies are going to come with the strings.
That's right. That's right, bro. All right. I'm play this real quick.
It was in these Swiss mountains that the world was first introduced to the phrase the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and it's been a hot topic among academics, politicians, and business leaders ever since. But what exactly does it mean? The term Fourth Industrial Revolution was coined by the founder of the World Economic Forum, a former professor named Klaus Schwab. Schwab wrote a book with that title to describe an era marked by a technological revolution that is blurring the lines between the physical, digital, and biological spheres. Let's break that down. Technologies like artificial intelligence, autonomous vehicles, or the Internet of Things are becoming ingrained in our day-to-day lives and even our bodies. Think of voice-activated virtual assistants, Face ID recognition, or healthcare sensors. Schwab first presented his vision of the Fourth Industrial Revolution at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting here in Davos in 2016. But to understand the idea, we need to go much further back in history, to Industrial Revolution number 1. The first Industrial Revolution started in Great Britain around 1760 and spread to Europe and North America through the early 1800s. It was powered by a major invention, the steam engine. The result? New manufacturing processes, the creation of factories, and a booming textiles industry. From the late 1800s, the Second Industrial Revolution was marked by mass production and new industries like steel, oil, and electricity. The light bulb, telephone, and internal combustion engine were a few of the major inventions of this era. The Third Industrial Revolution, sometimes known as the Digital Revolution, occurred in the second half of the 20th century. In just a few decades, we saw the invention of the semiconductor, personal computer, and the internet. So what separates the Fourth Industrial Revolution from the Third? Experts say the main difference is that technology is merging more and more with humans' lives, and that technological change is happening faster than ever.
What did she say? Listen to the...
Technology is merging more and more with humans' lives, and that technological change is happening faster than ever. Consider this. It took 75 years for 100 million users to adopt the telephone. Instagram signed up 100 million users in just 2 years, while Pokemon Go caught that amount in 1 month. 3D printing is just one example of fast-paced technology in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. The industry has gone from a business idea to big business, with 3D printer shipments expected to increase from just under 200,000 in 2015 to 2.4 million in 2020. Today, you can have a hip replacement from a 3D printed bone or use a 3D printed bionic arm. Talk about blurring the line between humans and technology, right? This new era of technology is driving a lot of innovation. You can see in this chart the number of patents related to the Fourth Industrial Revolution for things like 3D printing or AI has been climbing up and up since early 2000. Organizations are embracing new technologies to make their businesses more efficient, similar to how they embraced the steam engine during the First Industrial Revolution. But some companies and governments are struggling to keep up with the fast pace of technological change. Research shows innovators, investors, and shareholders benefit the most from innovation. The risk is that the Fourth Industrial Revolution...
So it's the shareholders and the rich that really benefit the most, the people who already own everything. And so as everybody begins to get uploaded into this new system, there's going to be more regulation and constraint that's placed on everyone. This is the essence of the MOB systems. This is what it's all about, man. It's about complete control over all resources and mainly human resource, which is your actual DNA code. You will be absolutely underneath the control and thumb and watch of Esau. That's why he puts himself as the eagle. The eagle is the predator that sits at the top in the height of the mountains and is able to see and know and control everything. That's why he puts himself in that place and represents himself as that type of chief high-end predator. All right. You said you had something required, Quan?
Yeah, it's in there, a little treat. There's something that they're coming with that's called micro payments. So another thing that comes with these CBDCs and these new technologies, the ability to charge you by the millisecond for anything. An example is like, you know, when you go to the airport and you might have to buy Wi-Fi from the airport. Now, they do it in blocks, right? And the minimum block might be half an hour. The reason they charge you for half an hour Wi-Fi is because it's not.
Oh, my bad. That's my bad. I'm having to make a switch real quick. Can you hear me, bro?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna see me drop off here and be added onto this this other one.
Okay, can't.
But just keep rolling out. Just keep rolling.
Yeah, can't. Right. So the reason that they charge you like for the 30 minutes is because of those fees that we spoke about before. Now with micropayments, they're saying it's going to be the solution, because what you can do is you can charge someone for Wi-Fi by the second, and the money can be taken out of your account as a fraction, because these cryptocurrency can be a fraction of a whole number.
Mm-hmm. Can you send what you just sent into the private chat again?
Yeah. Okay.
Can you do that again?
Yeah, I think I might say. So you can imagine that they could do that with any resource, like your house tap for your water bill. You can be actually charged for your water bill as you're using the water, and that can also be used as a form of rationing, because then if you control your money supply, you control your water. It's a very, very nasty situation that they're bringing through. So we're gonna show you a little video of how that's gonna work. So when you get your mark of the beast now, and they give you your new money that's programmable, they can program the amount of money, the amount of water that you can use at a dispenser, and then they can control that and deduct that from your account in real time. This is the technology that they have, man. That's why we're in that time, man, for the mark of the beast to come. We're in that time right now. The technology is here. It's not no technology that's like 20, 30 years away. They have the technology right now. All they needed was the right crisis to speed up the technology becoming more ubiquitous, you know. Oh, like the brother saying, over there in the East, they already have a lot of these technologies as like an everyday thing. They already have the system set up over there, where if you have you could do a traffic stop violation, and within a minute your face, money has been deducted directly from your bank account, and your face has been put up on the screens everywhere to shame you, like just like that. There ain't nobody that has. It's all automated. The minute you did something wrong, you get fined instantly, and there's nothing you could do about it, and your face and everything gets put up and you're ashamed. They have the technology already, you know. We're just waiting for the brother to come back, and then he gonna play this little concept video that we got here. Hey, you ain't gonna get this from these other guys, man. These other guys at Tazaryak and that, they're playing games and they're juiced in with the system, so they're not gonna break it down to you. Everything that's happening right now is exactly as what the scriptures say is supposed to be happening, and the scriptures are alive. They're not dead. So people might say, oh, the Bible is outdated. It's not outdated. Everything that the scripture says to happen is happening, but it has to manifest itself in a particular way. So the mark of the beast isn't just going to be floating around in the air somewhere, some metaphysical thing. If it's a real thing that has to be done, there has to be a system set up in order to facilitate that. This is Isaiah 55:11. So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent these different things, to invent these different things and to perform these different tasks, which in the end is going to fulfill prophecy, man. It's all leading up towards the time of Jacob's trouble. Okay, the time of Jacob's trouble, Daniel's 12:1, a time of great tribulation and trouble. It's leading up towards the race riots. You can see the race riots being made, the class wars, the famines, okay, and just a general lack of resources. Because the Bible tells you about perplexity of nations, which the word perplexity there means a straightening or lacking, because a lot of goods are becoming rare now. You know, because they're saying that the supply chain's all jacked up. So a lot of things are going to become rare, right? And they're going to use that as a reason to take control.
Yeah. Can you hear me, bro?
You back now? Yeah.
Okay, because for some reason, it's blocking my ability to share my screen on this other computer, bro. This computer here is not letting me do much at all, brother.
All right, let me share the screen. I'll show brothers there.
Yeah, it's not letting me share my screen for some reason.
Yeah, you know what it is, isn't it? Like it's the ghost of Steve Jobs.
Yeah, right. Charles Schwab. How dare you talk about me like this? Lock his screen now.
I don't know if can you add my
We
screen?
understand that FPGAs can seem complex. I mean, you have to learn a new language like VHDL or
And I'll just show you.
System Verilog, and the programming tools, well, they can be a bit confusing.
Because the future is that they want to charge you for everything you do in real time.
That's right.
But with the CBDCs, that will allow them to control what you can do in real time. If you see what I'm saying. Yeah, that's why it says you can't buy and sell unless you got that mark. They want to control all the resources in the earth, but the scripture says the earth is the Lord's, man, and the fullness thereof. Right. So check this out, man. Can you see that art?
Mm-hmm.
So this guy has set up a system using the XRP ledger, right? Now what he's got here is a water dispenser that's hooked up. So as he turns on the water dispenser, it's charging him in real time. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
That's called a micropayment. Now you can't do that with money as it is today, but you can do that with cryptocurrency. You see the difference?
Says be able to record the contents of your screen. Okay, this is gonna shut me down. Oh boy.
I hope Arkham can see that. Yeah. It's a short, so you can't really put it in large view.
Hey, I might fall off real quick because I gotta redo this page. Hold on, just 1 second. Let me see if I can pull StreamYard up. StreamYard up here.
Right? You can't do this with the money system as it is. You can only record it and then charge someone later. These new systems allow you to charge somebody in real time. And that's what they want to do with the internet. That's what they want to do with Netflix and everything else. You will be charged in real time for what you want to use. And that will be the new system. And you might think that's crazy, but hey, that's what's coming down the pipeline. And they have the technology. Let's read it again. That's why it says what it says. And you're going to have to be identifiable in order to access all of these resources and goods and services. Why haven't I got no connection? Okay. All right, Revelations 13 and 16. And he calls it all, both small and great. All right, small meaning your person of lesser stature in society, and great is your person of greater stature. Rich and poor, right? So regardless of your socio-economic status, free and bond. So that's your citizen that is at liberty, and that's your prisoner. Yeah, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Now that mark of identification, that mark that's gonna identify you and juice you into, allow you to communicate with the digital system through RFID receivership. Okay, you might receive that mark in your right hand or in your foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, meaning anything, because everything in this society is a transaction. You're not going to be able to do anything. You're not going to be able to have food. You're not going to be able to buy and sell, go to the grocery store. You know what I'm saying? Use Netflix, use the internet. Because don't you pay for the internet? Easy? And that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Okay, you're not going to be able to take part in this man's system unless you have that mark. And that's why there's going to be a lot of pressure, because you're going to have to make a decision. Are you going to trust in Yahweh Hashem Yahushai that the Lord will provide for you, or are you going to trust in Esau? When you see all these guys taking the juice, that you already know that them guys are going to take the mark of the, because them guys are going to justify it, because it's going to be a point of difficulty to not have it. So they're going to justify it. Oh, well, General Yohana already said that. He said that when the brother, I forgot what camp the brother was from, but when he called up General Yohana, and the brother said to the general, listen, if you don't take the microchip, you ain't going to be able to eat. He said, well, you're going to have to take the chip then. So in his spirit, he already knows that if Esau brings that inconvenience, he ain't trusting that the Lord can provide the food, that the Lord can provide what we need outside of Esau's system. He believes in Esau and his system, so he gonna take that mark. Okay, to get the government food, to get safety, to access water. When we know that in the scriptures that the Lord can provide all those things. The Lord fed our people with manna from heaven. The Lord fed our people with quail. The Lord delivered food to one prophet from another prophet, man, using birds and all sorts. Yeah, the Lord had Moses split the rock and produce water. I believe water also came out of what was it? A donkey's jawbone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is why the scripture says. I'm sorry. Out of the lion, yeah, the honey out of the lion. This is why the scripture says. This is why you got to read the scriptures. The scripture says the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And then the scripture turn around and tell you that the Lord is the one that feeds everybody on earth, not Esau. The Lord is the one that provides food for everyone, even the animals. He provides a meal. But Esau is going to make you feel like he's the one that provides. He's in control. This is his earth. This isn't his earth. That's why the scripture turn around and tell you what? That the things written aforetime were written for our learning. So when you hear about Yahweh Shai breaking up imagine that he's breaking up 2 loaves of bread and a couple of fish and feeding, thousands of people, and still there's food left over. What does that tell you? We're gonna have them same situations where brothers might have a little tiny bit of food, and all of a sudden everybody's fed and they're full and there's more food.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not in the spirit of understanding that the Lord can provide these things, that he is a true power, the scripture says he's ever, what does it say again, brother? I'm trying to remember the exact words, that he's ever present.
Thinking about
the scripture that says he's present in the time of I think it's in the book of Psalms.
Let me see, I'm gonna find it real quick.
See if I can find it.
Sure.
Right. Psalms 46:1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. That's a powerful scripture. What did Yahweh Shai say? Yahweh Shai said, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. So when we're in these situations to come, where we might be in a situation where we can't just go into the supermarket and buy food because we don't possess what.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can't do this. When you're put into that situation, you have to understand that we have a power who is present. He's not far away. We have a power that can provide. We have a power that can split the sea so that you can walk through on dry land.
That's right.
Constantly, the Lord has shown that he is. But then when you get these guys now, and based on the flu, they're running and taking the juice, then you already know what spirit they're in. They're in the spirit of, when that time comes, they're gonna justify, well, if we don't do this, then how we gonna eat?
How's we gonna eat?
They're gonna be running up into FEMA to get some of that Soylent Green, some of that lab grown MEET, that lab grown meat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it won't even be real meat. That's why they be pushing all that vegan stuff down your throat. It's gonna be that lab grown stuff. Or dead bodies, man, that recycled bodies and that Soylent Green, and they're gonna run up in there to eat that. You know, because they're not spiritual men. They don't believe in the Lord, really. They believe in carnal things. The carnal mind is enmity with the Most High. You can't be carnal. Esau's gonna make it look like there's no way out. But with the Lord, there's always a way out. If the Lord want to do it, he could do it. Read the scriptures.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great points. Great points, my man. Okay.
You know? Oh, if you don't, you'll lose your job if you don't take the mark. That's all right.
It's okay. I ain't like this job anyway. That should be your mindset. I want
the Lord is gonna provide a way. Trust me. He's not gonna forsake us. He's not gonna forsake the seed of Abraham. He's not gonna forsake his elect. He's not gonna let Esau get the victory and just kill all of us. Is that what you think is gonna happen?
Nope.
You should rejoice, because that means that you know that the Lord is gonna come and mess.
He's gonna take care of his children.
You're gonna like that. There was one video, I don't know if you saw it. There's a video on YouTube where you got like the lion, because the scripture calls Yahweh Shai the conquering lion of Judah, right? And there's a video where you got this lioness, and I got kind of emotional when I was watching it, because she was the lioness was by herself, right? And just surrounded by hyenas. And it, you know, basically she was done for. You know what I mean? And the hyenas were coming, and the lioness had to lay down its legs on the floor so that they couldn't grab a leg and break it. And the whole time the lioness was just crying out, and you were like, well, boy, like it's over. Then out of nowhere, it was like, some massive lion comes out, and all the hyenas just scatter.
Wow.
When the lion turned up, because the lion ain't no joke. That's that's what it's gonna be like for us when Yahweh Shai comes. We're gonna be surrounded. It's gonna seem like, wow, this is crazy. All this madness is happening around us, and then the Lord's just gonna turn up and just deliver his people, man.
Yeah. See, the Most High is going to catch Esau in the height of his pride. All right, and you know he's in control, or he feels that if you watch Charles Schwab, we just played the clip of Charles Schwab talk about the Fourth Industrial Revolution. One of the main things that I saw was pride. You know, it's going to be very tough for other corporations and nations that do not go digital to be able to thrive in the next Fourth Industrial Revolution. He really thinks in his mind, like, they got it. Like, in his mind, you ain't getting out of what I got. But Esau is going to be taken down in his pride. Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai is going to protect. You know? Very good scripture, GMS Spiritual Arc 144. Put Job chapter 5, verse 19 through 23. He shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, yea, in 7 there shall no evil touch thee. In famine he shall redeem thee from death, and in war from the power of the sword. Thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue, neither shalt thou be afraid of destruction when it cometh. And at destruction and famine thou shalt laugh, neither shalt thou be afraid of the beasts of the earth. Right? Where he put verse 20. Let me see. Oh yeah, that was it that he put on there, and then he skipped down to chapter 20. But yeah, man, Esau is going to be taken down, and we're going to be in a good position whenever this translation of kingdoms happens, man. You have to have trust in that. That's the whole part of the algorithm. All right. Did you have any more clips or anything that you wanted to go through?
I've got another precept here as well. Revelations 12 and 11. It says, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death. You know, so you got to remember that this is the reason why Yahweh Shai made that sacrifice, so that in these last days we wouldn't be consumed. We were bought with a price. So the Lord's not going to allow his elect to be joined onto another, because we belong to him now. You know, he ain't going to allow for that. He made a sacrifice to gain us, not to lose us to people like Klaus Schwab, so we could bow down and worship that. You know what?
Yes, sir. That's what they think, bro. Let me see if I can. That's not really what I want. I want to go over now into, but really we've touched on it pretty much this whole time. You know, how basically this fourth industrial revolution was going to lead to war. And because of the way globalism has worked and these global markets have worked this whole time, it's really led to all these nations being able to be prepared for war, as they've just kind of gleaned the riches from the whore that rideth upon the beast. And so we don't have to go super deep into this. I didn't know if you had any clips or if you had any articles or anything like that that you might wanted to bring up. We don't have to. But one of the videos that we did a while back was World War III algorithm. I believe it's called The Big Picture. And in that algorithm, and we also have one called the Perfect Storm. But in that algorithm, basically, it just talks about how all of these nations are positioned in the Middle East in a place to where there's going to be a war in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Okay. And so when you look at the current positioning of things, when you're looking at the current geoeconomic or the geopolitical climate, all these nations are trying to really they're fighting over who's going to control this next leg, this next digital age. Where is it going to be centralized at? And a lot of people want to say China and everything like that. It's not going to be centralized anywhere because it's going to end too quickly. So once they are issuing out this mark of the beast system, it's going to quickly escalate into war, because there's going to be a lot of nations that get the short end of the stick, like Charles Schwab said. And these nations are going to be angry and they're going to fight. So I want to read this in Joel, the 3rd chapter. Let me skip down. I'm going to skip down to verse 9. Joel 3:9 says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the heathen be wakened, and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Okay, so now everybody's going to be coming into the valley of Jehoshaphat over in the Middle East. Right now we have a perpetual war happening in Syria and different areas all across the Middle Eastern kind of region, up and down the Euphrates River. But they've been able to beat their plowshares and pruning hooks into sword and spears because of the initial agreements with the petrodollar. And those agreements caused money to flow into the hands of Ishmael. Okay, Ishmael prophetically was going to be at war all the time. And we've seen that play out for sure. And with that being said, basically the United States, to forward its enterprise and make deals with everybody, they did a lot of weapons contracts. So now you have nations like Saudi Arabia and even other nations that are close round about. They all have major military capability. None that can, specifically compare to the United States. But once all these nations gather themselves together, it's formidable. Okay, it's formidable to the United States. All right. And so we see those issues springing up. All right. Also, it's not just a war with military weapons. It's also cyber attacks and digital capabilities that's going to make war with the United States amongst the other nations be very, very movie-like. You see? Verse 13 says, "Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full. The fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision." All right? This is what's getting ready to happen amongst all of these different things that have been culminating. This is the back end of the algorithm, with all these nations basically fighting over who's going to be able to control or be in the best position possible with the MOB systems. Okay? Did you have anything you want to add with that? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I just wanted to show brothers, even now, like what you're mentioning is happening, because the situation in Afghanistan, like from what I'm reading and understanding, China has a hand in what's going on over there, and are basically making a grab for Afghanistan, and then that will help them to link up with Iran in the Middle East, because you know that whole region is connected.
Yeah,
you know, America basically have lost their foothold in Afghanistan to China, which is very interesting if that is indeed is the case. Yeah, so I've just got an article here that I'm reading that's kind of outlining that information. So it goes into what you're saying with the petrodollar, and all these things are happening, man. Big moves are being made.
Let's go. Are you gonna read that or what? It's just a point.
Yeah, I mean, I could read some of it. That I'm reading. Oh, okay. I'm on. I didn't know I was on the screen. Yeah, it says Afghanistan has fallen as China is moving to threaten U.S. Middle East oil supplies, and the liar in chief, the liar in chief continues to deny the truth. It says, I was preparing for publishing an article on the CDC's planned implementation of concentration camps under the guise of the thing when I received confirmation of a story from an American GI that Afghanistan, despite assurances from the lying Biden administration, has fallen. Not only has Afghanistan fallen, communist Chinese troops are everywhere in Afghanistan. In fact, Chinese troops engaged American forces alongside their Taliban allies as a base was in the process of being abandoned. It is a case of shades of Saigon, as elements of the North Vietnamese advanced on Saigon and helicopters had to land on the roof in order to rescue embassy personnel. America is not far from seeing history repeat itself nearly 50 years later. Yeah, so, you know, based upon what they're saying, it says the Daily Beast reported that Kabul authorities have become much more deeply engaged with Chinese leaders as the two work toward a deal to invest in Afghanistan's infrastructure through China's International Belt and Road Initiative. This was apparently the Biden plan all along, but wait, it is much worse than what is reported above. From the New York Post, let's see if it's worth even reading all this. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it goes back into that. But so allegiances are being formed, man. Geopolitical moves are being made. It says, oh, okay, this bit's fine. One may ask why this matters. Afghanistan is adjacent to Iran. The Iranians and the Chinese have been aligned in the BRICS nations' alignment of bypassing the petrodollar in favor of purchasing Iranian oil in gold. The BRICS nations, including Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. It does not take much insight to realize that the Chinese military will link up with the Iranian military, and the threat to the Middle East oil supplies will be immediate. Because of Biden's poorly planned withdrawal from Afghanistan, the entire region is now destabilized. However, the real threat to America focuses on the potential lack of available oil. So I suppose that's the next crisis they're trying to make, because I think Donald Trump came out of the woodwork and he was talking about that, wasn't he, on the news? Talking about how America isn't energy independent, and when he was in power, they were independent. But anyway, when Biden came into office, he immediately turned America from energy independent, there you go, nation to a dependent nation, dependent on the Middle East. When World War III breaks out, America's mobility and their ability to resupply and extend the battlefield has been purposefully compromised by this Benedict Arnold of a president. Everything that this president has done has been to harm America and Americans. Yeah, well, maybe he's paid off, innit? Yeah, that's pretty much it. Anyway, hey, we read about these politicians, man. Well, yeah.
This is a quick article that I had from the express.co.uk. World War III warning as Europe risks becoming a battlefield for China and U.S. It says World War III warnings were sounded after a China expert claimed that Europe risks becoming the new battlefield for China and the U.S. as Beijing pushes ahead with this Belt and Road Initiative investment in EU nations, right? So they're pushing, having these type of trade agreements which shift outside of the U.S. It says diplomatic tensions took a fresh turn this week after China urged the EU to make an independent judgment of Beijing free of the U.S. In a phone call with the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, China's President Xi Jinping spoke of the challenges his country faces in providing new development projects. According to the state broadcaster, CCTV said, at present, China-EU relations are facing new development opportunities, but also different challenges, right? China's development is an opportunity for the EU. We hope the EU can make the right judgment independently and achieve strategic autonomy in the real sense. Tensions between China and the U.S. have increased since Joe Biden entered the White House in January. Things risk becoming worse as China sets its sights on Europe and the rest of the world in its ambitious Belt and Road Initiative, also known as the New Silk Road, right? And so this is how those tin horns, cause problems. Goodness gracious, yuck, right? So when you go to Revelation, the 17th chapter, and the 15th verse, he says, in the 16th verse, it says, "In the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For the Most High have put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of the Most High shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth." So it says that the 10 horns which we saw upon the beast, they're going to hate that whore, right? And it all goes back to trade agreements and everything like that. But we see here how these things kind of culminate within the World War III algorithm. It's a buildup, right? So, Germany, France, we always mention these two nations because they're always at the forefront of having issues with diplomatic decisions that the U.S. makes because it hurts them economically a lot. Okay? Now, going back to the article, it says, the plans look to open up and connect the world via ancient trading routes with ultra-modern technology and infrastructure. The belt will follow overland routes from China across Central Asia and the Middle East, up through Europe, while its road will carve out new maritime routes west to Africa and through the southern Europe with the hope of establishing new infrastructure through the Balkans and Central Europe. This is where Russia comes into play as well. Beijing has already signed an investment deal with Italy, the first G7 member to do so, and a founding state of what is today the EU, right? It says China also owns it's funny how, what's in Italy? Rome, right? It's a founding state. It says China also owns the port of Piraeus in Greece and has considerable influence in Trieste, a vital port in Italy that marks the beginning of the journey for millions of Chinese products flooding into southern and central Europe, right? And so these type of issues create tension, create arguments in the backdrop that can lead to the Most High putting an evil thought in the minds of the leaders, all right, which will culminate in what? Armageddon, war. Okay.
Yeah. And it's nothing strange because if you go back in history, we always learn from history. World War One, I got an article here that says 4 countries that switched from the Axis powers to the Allies. Right, one of those countries was Romania. Romania switched sides. It says at the start of the war, Romania was Allied and Poland and pro-British. However, as the war progressed, in order to avoid being overrun by the Soviet Union, combined with fascist elements within the country, Romania adopted a pro-German dictatorship and became an affiliate state of the Axis powers. So that's Romania. Bulgaria did the similar thing. Another affiliate state for most of the war, Bulgaria was allied with the Axis powers. The rise of the Bulgarian right wing in the 1930s saw a growth in ties with Germany, aided by German promises of the return of the traditional Bulgarian territories in Thrace and Macedonia. Bulgaria signed the Tripartite Pact in March 1941. So they switched for land. You know, different guys switch for different reasons. Finland is another one, and Italy's famous. I think they switched like 3 times. The point is that as we're reading in the scriptures, that a lot of these American allies are going to launch missiles on them. It shouldn't be something strange, because there's been many wars where allies have gone into wars with one side and came out the other side of the war on the opposing side.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what's going to happen. Some of these nations, all these nations that go into the war on American side are going to end the war destroying America. Why? Well, the scripture says, Isaiah 33:1, woe to thee that spoilest, and thou wast not spoiled, and dealest treacherously, and they dealt not treacherously with thee. When thou shalt cease to spoil, thou shalt be spoiled. And when thou shalt make an end to deal treacherously, they shall deal treacherously with thee. So a lot of these American allies, well, all of them in Europe, there's going to come a point where they're going to flip sides. Yes, some sooner than others. We got to see how it's going to play out.
Absolutely. You know, we're going to see this thing culminate, man. All right. So, hey, this is the algorithm. This is the big play. Did you have anything else you wanted to touch in on, Doc?
Nah, just not algorithm related. I mean, this is some miscellaneous news while brothers are here. China's having more flooding again, and the Three Gorges Dam once again is in great danger. So that's something to keep an eye on, because that Three Gorges Dam is very important infrastructure for China. There's a lot of things that's going to happen in these last days, man.
Yeah, which that flooding could cause a huge supply chain issue.
Oh, massive! Most of the factories are on that downriver from the Three Gorges Dam, Wuhan and all that.
Yep. And so they might even blow that dam just to force it to happen.
That's what I'm saying. It could be false flag. So, you know, something to keep an eye on.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot of things going on right now, but yeah, that's just one article that I had there. But yeah, I ain't really got nothing else.
Hey, man, this was beautiful. I had a great time, man. Like, you know, I'm having technical difficulties, but I still had a blast doing this with you, brother. It's always a pleasure to be able to work with you and bring out this information and its knowledge. I appreciate each and every one of you brothers and sisters that was here. All the brothers that posted information and comments, and you know, it's much appreciated, man. So we're going to continue on with this. We're going to see what happens towards the end of this year. We already know that we foresee future lockdowns happening, and them continuing to make the gradual steps needed to push the MOB systems, man. And so be mindful of your heart and your mind, and just know that Yahweh Shem Yahushua is going to take care of us as things get darker out here. It's going to get darker. So, hey, girl, we just got to keep staying on and keep pushing. Did you have any closing statements?
I just found some crazy article on CBDCs, but yeah, man, listen, all this stuff is coming together nicely, man. All the prophecies exactly like how the apostles told us, man. And as we're getting closer and closer, we can see it more clearly, and we're bringing out the information. And these scoffers and scorners, they really ain't got nothing to say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the only thing that's left for them is to just take the chip, because, you know, come on, it's clear. You know, we weren't talking about CBDCs like 4 years ago, but it's like now this has come to the forefront, and now we're seeing even clearly. Oh yeah, look, that makes sense. We were talking about digital money, but now we see the, you know, how it's really unfolding. So
absolutely. So
I'm gonna post this link that I got here in the comment board. It's just an article I just found. So you know, those of you watching, you can well, I can't post from here.
Well, send it to me, and I'll post it.
Yeah, okay, I'll send it in the private chat. You could check out that article seems good. It goes into a lot of the details surrounding CBDCs and why, you know, it's very insidious.
Boom. Okay. All right, man. So with that, man, call halal Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Christ Hillstone. Much peace, love, and salutations to all of you out there pushing the word, sincerity, and truth. Shalom.
Shalom, man.
Shalom, man.